City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continued relationship to this land. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid style and is streamed via Council's webcast page and Facebook Live. Streams and recordings of Council meetings are copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced, or republished without the permission of Council. If we experience any technical difficulties this evening, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time to resolve the issue. I remind attendees that any member of the public addressing Council must extend due courtesy and respect to Council and the processes under which it operates, and must take direction from the Chair, myself, whenever called on to do so. Speakers must remain respectful, and statements or questions must not be defamatory, offensive, or objectionable, aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of Council staff, or relate to a matter outside the powers of Council. Thank you all for attending. We have a pretty full gallery tonight. We'll go through a few business items, but then we'll get to the public question time. The first item is a request to attend by electronic means. I've been advised by the CEO that we have received no request to attend by electronic means tonight. But we do have some apologies. There's two apologies, one from Councillor Crawford and from Councillor Baxter. And I have note that Councillor Pearl has estimated his time of arrival tonight to be 7:30 p.m. So he should be joining us. Also, Councillor Sirikoff has requested a leave of absence from the 7th of September, tomorrow, to the 8th of October 2023. Councillors, I now seek a mover for the motion that Council grants a leave of absence for Councillor Sirikoff from Thursday the 7th of September to the Sunday the 8th of October 2023. Councillor Martin, thank you. Councillor Bond, a second. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. You can vote for yourself to go on leave, I think. So it's carried. We'll say that. Okay. Minutes of previous Council meetings. The last meeting we had was on the 16th of August 2023, and those minutes have been circulated. Are there any questions about the minutes? I see none. I'll have a motion. Would someone like to move a motion for the minutes to be approved? Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Bond, a second. Thank you. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest in a matter being discussed at tonight's meeting? CEO Chris Carroll.
Through you, Mayor, I've previously declared a conflict in relation to matters to do with the St Kilda Triangle in relation to my wife's employment with a competitor of Live Nation who is a tenant of Council, has a potential to be either a participant or impacted by any future process. I've not been involved in any of the advice or decision making in relation to that matter. I will stay in the room tonight because I'm not involved in the decision making, and also because the information that is being discussed is publicly available.
Thank you. Any further conflicts of interest? If not, we'll move on to public question time. Now, there are about 30 speakers tonight. This will be public questions and submissions on report items. Under Council's governance rules, questions can only be asked about items not on the agenda. Therefore, if you're speaking to an agenda item tonight, please note that I will not refer your questions onto an officer for response. However, a councillor may wish to take up your question on your behalf when the item is considered. Now, due to the large amount of speakers tonight, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. I have a timer back here, a buzzer, so it'll go off. It's a bit abrupt, but that'll keep everybody to be fair, that we all have the same amount of time to speak to something. Given that there are so many people speaking on several similar items, if you feel that what you've online, so we're going to go through the online ones first. There's 6 of them. Then we'll come back into the room. We have someone asking a question, and the rest are speaking to items on the agenda. So do we have first, I'll call on... let me read this part for the people online. We will begin with the people online from the WebEx platform. Speakers, as I call your name, our governance team will unmute you. A pop-up will appear on your end. Please select Unmute Me. Then we'll start with you stating your name, your suburb, and you'll have 2 minutes, all right? So I'll first call upon Peter Holland, speaking to item 10.1, St Kilda Triangle. Peter, can you hear us? Peter. Can you hear us? Is he unmuted? He has unmuted. Peter, we haven't heard you yet. If you could start. Last chance, Peter. Otherwise, I'll come back to you. All right, let's move on then. I have Daniela Skotnicki speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore Site Plan. Daniela, can you hear us?
I refer to the letter to council.
Great.
David.
Hold on, Daniela, real quick. Sorry, we missed the first part. Can you say your name and suburb, and then we'll start that 2 minutes. Go ahead.
It's Daniela Skotnicki from Brighton.
Thank you.
I refer to the letter to council from the residents and owners of Head Street dated 31 August, and I'll address some of the safety concerns we've highlighted in that letter with the Elwood Foreshore development. The intersection of Head Street and St Kilda Street is not accessible travelling from the city side via a right turn. A vast majority of the traffic coming to the foreshore would be coming from this direction. The access to Head Street would require a significant detour of 2 kilometres, as noted in the Bayside City Council letter. This will encourage illegal U-turns on St Kilda Street and illegal right turns into Head Street into oncoming traffic. The councillors should gravely consider the impact of the proposal and the high probability that the changes would result in serious head-on collisions. The current purposeful access road off Ormond Esplanade is safe. We concur with parking being located here, but should consolidate all parking in one location. The planning scheme outlines this as a key consideration for car parking provision. The other issue is the perpendicular parking design. The design guide in the Victorian planning provisions specifies that parallel parking is more appropriate for a narrow residential street such as Head Street. The design guide specifically refers to hazards to pedestrians, particularly children with perpendicular parking. Head Street is located in a high turnover location next to an oval and a beach on which children play and people load and unload their vehicles with beach and sporting gear. Cars reversing will not be able to see children running out or other vehicles. The frustration of those circling for parking and stuck in traffic will cause additional hazard for our children playing on the oval. I would be disappointed to think that the Victorian government would agree to contribute significant funds to a project which causes safety issues and is inconsistent with many of the Victorian planning provisions. The removal of existing purposeful access road to foreshore buildings to Head Street and significant increase in parking on Head Street is not in the interest of any Victorian residents.
Thank you, Daniela. Daniela, that is 2 minutes, so I'll have to stop you there to be fair to everybody. Thank you. I call upon Tegan Bissett speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore Site Plan. Not on. Okay, so have we seen anything from Tegan? I'll come back to you in a bit. Then I go on to Christine Evely speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Christine, can you hear us?
Brighton resident.
Great. Sorry, I'll need you cut out a little bit. Can you say your name and then suburb again, please?
Christine Evely, Brighton.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm a member of the Elwood Lifesaving Committee, and I also live very close to the foreshore. 3 generations of involvement in Elwood Lifesaving Club, so quite significant knowledge of the club and its needs. I want to point out the club's been a part of the social fabric of Elwood for more than 100 years, plays a huge role as core role as an emergency service with volunteer lifesavers watching hundreds of beachgoers each year, performing rescues, first aid cases and taking upwards of 900 actions each year to prevent serious safety incidents. The club runs a NIPPERS program with over 300 children. It's actually capped because we can't manage any more kids than that. The club performs water safety, triathlons. It's a training hub in the area, partners with Elwood College to provide bronze medallion courses. Now, I'll tell you that just to have you think about the huge remit of the club, we understand and recognise that the current clubhouse is no longer suitable for our more than 900 members. What we're looking for is genuine and detailed consultation going forward, and I want to stress genuine and detailed consultation. We have huge storage and space constraints that are mentioned in the foreshore plans, but we have some issues that we'd like to further discussion about in relation to sharing of storage. We find that the capacity that we need and the types of storage that we need may not be practical to share with other users of the beach at the moment. We also would really like the location of the club to be considered very, very carefully, thinking about access for safety issues in terms of performing rescues and preventing serious problems, but also the amount of very, very heavy equipment that gets carried down to the beach for all of the programs that we run, including young children carrying down heavy equipment for NIPA programs. In terms of location, we want to...
Thank you, Christine. I'll have to stop you there at the 2 minutes. Thank you very much. I know it seems harsh, but we have a lot of speakers, and it's the only fair way to get through it. All right, I now call upon James Newberry, speaking to item 10.2. James is MP, member for Brighton. James, can you hear us? Oh, you'll need to unmute yourself. Are you seeing what they're seeing? James, can you hear us? Not on. Okay, actually, he said earlier he had an... Do we need his number? No? Okay, that's it. Okay, you got it. Okay, last one I have on the list that we haven't gone to already, Angela Montebello. Is Angela available? Speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Sorry. No more. Okay. To everybody who is intending to call virtually, we don't have you on. If you're having trouble, how can they get a hold of us? Okay. So they'll come back to you as well, because we want to make sure that everyone's heard. So we understand there might be some issues. Look for an email from the governance team. We'll move... Sorry, is that someone now? Okay. This virtual thing. We're trying to be accommodating, but it's a bit challenging. Let's come back into the room then. I'll call on Michael Barrett, speaking to... submitting a question to Council. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Hi, Michael. Yeah, well, thanks.
That's good. My name's Michael Barrett. I'm from Port Melbourne.
Thank you.
Here tonight representing the Victorian Liberal Party Albert Park State Electoral Committee. My question is to the Mayor, but ultimately I believe the question is for the CEO or COO of the City of Port Phillip. It was reported earlier this week by major metropolitan news outlets, media outlets.
Do we need to start all over? Okay.
Start again?
You can shorten it a bit by just saying name and suburb, because we all heard you, but then start your 2 minutes, please.
Okay, look, I'll just get straight to the question if you heard the start of it.
But I do need to say name and suburb just for the recorded record.
Sure, it's Michael Barrett from Port Melbourne.
Thank you.
My question is to the Mayor, but ultimately I believe the question is for the CEO or COO of the City of Port Phillip. It was reported earlier this week by major metropolitan media outlets that the new City of Port Phillip waste disposal contractor Citywide is to be put up for sale by its owner, the City of Melbourne, ostensibly to pay for debt incurred by the City of Melbourne. My question is, as part of the City of Port Phillip tender process for the waste collection and disposal contract, was due diligence performed by the responsible officers of the City of Port Phillip as to the process around the sale or sale of assets or partial sale of Citywide? Furthermore, what plans does the responsible officers of the City of Port Phillip have in the event of a sale or partial sale of Citywide? Thanks very much, Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to refer to Simon Hill. Are you online? Simon? No.
Through you, Mayor.
Okay,
I will
Peter?
take the question.
Thank you, Peter.
Council is aware of the recent article in the Herald Sun regarding ownership of Citywide. Council was not made aware of any plans by City of Melbourne to potentially sell its ownership of Citywide during the award of the curbside waste collection in October last year, nor are we advised of the effect. Council will consider any potential impact on service delivery should the ownership changes.
Thank you. So we're just getting some messages from people online. Can I give you that to look at, please? Do you want me to come back to the online one or wait? Okay, all right. Peter Holland, we have you online. Peter, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi, Peter. Now we can hear you. Can you say your name and suburb, and you'll have 2 minutes. Speaking 10.1.
St Kilda. Look, I very much hope I am wrong about my position, but I don't think the proposal for the triangle is realistic. There are a number of good things about it. Firstly, it's an appropriate use as envisaged by the Foreshore Urban Design Framework. You've got an excellent project manager with a good track record in Port Phillip. Unlike in the past, there's no need for a big commercial development to cross-subsidise the saving of the Palais, and compared to the master plan, this is fairly modest and therefore more likely to be affordable. So possibly this will get up. But I think there's significant hurdles and I'm pessimistic. First of all, it doesn't comply with the planning scheme. It's inconsistent with the Foreshore UDF. Secondly, funding. I think this is fundamental, and I think Council has a responsibility to the community to give a ballpark figure of how much this would cost. Otherwise, it's misleading the community. And my rough ballpark figure is $50 million. Thirdly, and most importantly, I've got concerns about the role of the state government. In 2018, the state government said, and I quote, "It will work with the City of Port Phillip on a business case to determine the best long-term strategy for the site, with a mutually agreed process between the state and local government on the most appropriate way to resolve the future and best use of this iconic site." Now, Council just has spurned this offer of cooperation for years. Now it's engaged in a frolic of its own. It's developed its own proposal for live music and then has the chutzpah to ask the government to fund it. I think it's no surprise if Port Phillip is going to get a very chilly reception from the state government. Another concern is that this does raise the issue. Is a 5,000 patron venue the best use? It may be appropriate and needed in Melbourne, but is it the best use at the St Kilda Triangle? We would have two large music venues.
Thank you, Peter. That's the 2 minutes. I appreciate you calling tonight. Do we have anybody else online? James Newbury? Okay, James Newbury, MP, member for Brighton. Let's come back to you. Can you hear us? James, can you hear us? Have you unmuted, James? Do you see a pop-up there?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, success. All right, James, name and suburb,
good
please,
evening,
for the
councillors.
record.
Okay, James Newbury, member for Brighton, also representing Elwood as part of my constituency.
Oh. All right, go ahead, 2 minutes.
I speak tonight strongly opposed to Council's proposed Elwood Foreshore site plan. The proposal is nothing more than Council looking to find a legacy. A proposal Council describes as, and I quote, "considers Elwood's Foreshore as a whole rather than looking at each area, building or structure in isolation." That's bureaucratic speak, but don't ask for details, dates of delivery or who will pay for it, because we don't know. The project engagement has not been genuine. The St Kilda Triangle proposal is of a similar nature, an emperor with no clothes. Councillor, the Elwood Foreshore Master Plan should have been an opportunity for Council to work with the community and create a vision for the future. Councillors, despite the deafness to the flaws in the design, let me put some of the few issues that have not been addressed. So there was no agreed design in place for the historic Foreshore buildings other than bulldozing them. There's no ironclad guarantee on the future of the Croquet Club, including where they'll spend their centenary year. There's no date to update the Elwood Park Pavilion, which is not female-friendly, and girls are being forced to change in frankly shameful circumstances. And despite a 90% parking usage in off-peak times, the plan reduces the number of parking spaces, and as a result, Bayside Council's proposed reducing parking in other parts of Elwood. With Head Street being outside the municipal border, the plan unconscionably damages the amenity of Head Street, and concerningly, there's been no safety assessment in relation to St Kilda Street, an arterial road. And finally, there's no plan on who'll pay for this uncosted legacy project. Councillors, I hope you do the right thing and vote against the project. Given the changed municipal boundaries next year, I can assure you the community is taking note of every vote.
Thank you, James. All right, anybody else still online? Did you find that? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll come back in the room then. I call upon James Muscat speaking to item 7.1, petition request to implement clause 59 in order to control short stay accommodation. Hello, James.
Good evening, Mayor. My name's James Muscat and I reside in St Kilda.
Fantastic, thank you.
I am a long-time resident of St Kilda, nearly 20 years. I'm a father of 3 boys, a landlord of a St Kilda apartment and numerous others, and a neighbour of an unfortunate short-term accommodation. I'm here tonight to express my feelings and experiences with the short-term accommodation in my apartment block. Approximately 2 years ago, I purchased a $1 million apartment to accommodate my growing family, moving into a building which, until a few years ago, by all accounts, was a happy residential condominium. Since then, there has been a constant battle with an ex-resident that transitioned to being the landlord and owner and manager of 2 apartments that has seen countless hours of owners' corporation time, funds, police resources, VCAT hearings, petitions, lobbying to state government representatives, and we receive up to 60 emails or texts from the perpetrator each week. We deal with a lack of sleep, drug-fueled parties, violence, domestic violence, vandalism, theft, security breaches, nudity and noise. Noise which also emanates from a 6-man jacuzzi placed on 2 balconies which are directly under the master bedrooms of the adjacent apartments. It's a jacuzzi that bubbles and gurgles until all hours of night, accompanied by alcoholic beverages clinking amongst the music and screeching of laughter. Unfortunately, it's also a jacuzzi that was approved by council a number of years ago and has permits. This has regularly occurred during weeknights, not just weekends, and has created some serious effects for some of our residents. As you may be aware, the latest statistics show that the leading cause of hospital admissions for under 60s is mental health. Our situation has led to the decline of some residents' mental health, and I see that Section 59 is the only way that we can...
James. I'm sorry, that's the end of the 2 minutes. Thank you very much for sharing your stories, your experiences with us. I call upon Mark Waltham, speaking to item 10.1, St Kilda Triangle.
Hello, I'm Mark Waltham from St Kilda, and I'm here to voice my concerns regarding the new 2023 Triangle proposal. This 2023 proposal is nothing like the 2016 proposal that seemed to be agreed on some time ago. My main point is that I do not believe that this is a venue for live music or live performances. I believe this is an events or function venue dressed up as something else. And what I mean by that, if you build this tomorrow, you'll soon realise you won't be able to book enough acts to make it commercially viable. You'll need to rent it out for all sorts of things, corporate functions, conferences, weddings and everything else. How would you get 5,000 patrons into the site in 45 minutes before and after the show? And do you really think you can move that number of people in a small time with the car parks and the 2 trams that service there? It doesn't make any sense. Something of this proposed site needs to be within 100 metres of a train station or stick it in the city. If any of you were here last weekend, you would have seen that it doesn't take much for people to come down here, and they're not really trying to get here in a way within a short time window. They're coming through and out the day, and that's only because there's reasonable weather. The local restaurants were doing a fantastic trade, and there wasn't a spare place to sit down on the grass down in the Triangle area. So what I ask the councillors tonight is to not give the green light to go ahead and get feedback from the community, because they'll be irate, I'm pretty sure about this. But there's 3 things that can be done. First is do a proper commercial analysis for this function centre before you consult with the residents. If it's destined to be something other than a live music, live performance venue, then at least be honest about that with the community. Secondly, detail some of the transportation issues. How are you going to get thousands of people in and out of there before and after showtime? And then 3, come up with some definite heights on the structure, and importantly, how much of the view is lost from the upper esplanade. This was one of the major irritations for everybody back in 2006. Please stick with the 2006 master plan. Thanks.
Thank you. I call upon Janet Rosenberg, speaking to item 10.1, St Kilda Triangle. Hi, Janet.
Hi, councillors, Mayor. I'm Janet Rosenberg, President of the Auckland Street Traders, and I've got a retail business in St Kilda. I support the continuation of Council's commitment to the revised direction for the St Kilda Triangle site and to Council seeking feedback from the community and key stakeholder engagement on the site layout. A permanent large live music and performance venue is an exciting opportunity for St Kilda to rebuild its reputation as a live music precinct. A live music venue such as proposed would align with the current live music plan and building momentum on St Kilda being the first live music precinct in Victoria. This also builds on the history of St Kilda as a live music area and has the potential to reinvigorate our precinct to its booming past, where people came to St Kilda to listen to live music and the streets were activated and alive. Any event in the area drives visitation and vitality to the precinct. Just look at the recent Father's Day car show, for example. Every trader was busy and the streets were alive. Whenever there are events on in St Kilda, there is a noticeable increase to trade, with people coming early to browse in the precinct or to enjoy our hospitality venues. St Kilda is also a tourist and cultural precinct. This venue will add enormously to the arts in the area. We need people to come. The proposed venue will encourage business and contribute enormously to economic growth in the area. As a second consequence, an increase in people visiting the area means there is often a decrease in social issues, which have been prominent of late. Together with an increased vibrancy, there will consequently be another benefit: less empty shops, as it will be more viable for tenants to take up a tenancy. Car parking is always an issue in the city, and community feedback needs to be considered, and this engagement will allow for this. Feedback could perhaps reinforce the need for better advertising of the available car parking, which is often currently underutilised. I believe this motion, if successful, will allow information to be fed back to Council to allow the best outcome for St Kilda's future growth. Thank you.
Perfectly timed. Well done. Councillor Bond?
Janet, before you go, can I just ask one question?
Sorry.
Has there been an estimate of the crowd numbers from Sunday as yet?
I haven't received it, but somewhere between 45 to 60. I'm not...
1,000 people?
Yeah, 1,000.
Thank you.
Wow, fantastic. I call upon Mary Stewart, speaking to item 10.1. Are we having a hard time hearing it online? No, we're good online? Okay, great. Thank you. Speaking to 10.1, St Kilda Triangle. Hi, Mary.
Mayor, Councillors, my name is Mary Stewart. I'm a St Kilda resident. I work in St Kilda. I'm an employer in St Kilda, and I am also a member of the St Kilda Tourism and Events Association and with the Foreshore Traders Association. Firstly, let me say that I support and we support the objectives of increased live music in St Kilda. The venue that is being proposed to seat 5,000, will stand 5,000 people, I think requires that the available parking increase, not decrease. If you're bringing an additional 5,000 people into the area, then the parking that is currently available, which is for 400 cars, should increase, not decrease. And that would be a basic concern that we have. Will the Council undertake an independent traffic assessment as part of the consultation process and have that information available to community groups? And the traffic issues associated with having a live music venue for 5,000 people next door to a seated venue for 3,000 people next door to Luna Park and other venues, that the combined traffic is of significance and should not be ignored by the Council in its considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I call upon Hugh Stokehouse, or Hugh from the Stokehouse. It's written Hugh Stokehouse. Speaking to item 10.1, St Kilda Triangle. Hi, Hugh.
Hi, I'm Hugh Van Handel. I live in East Melbourne. I'm the General Manager of Stokehouse Restaurant in St Kilda. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the Council on such a detailed project and such high ambitions. We believe you're right when stating that this is a once-in-generation development opportunity to create something unique and special to Melbourne, and we'd like to express our support to Council on this ambitious project. However, we'd like to acknowledge that our support is conditional on a minimum of 500 car parks above or below ground. The case for increased car parking is supported by Clause 43.04 of the Development Plan Overlay in Port Phillip Planning Scheme, where it highlights public works should support but not detract from the viability of existing attractions and environmental assets, whilst ensuring adequacy of car parking provisions. Given the Port Phillip Development Overlay Plan, I'd like to ask Council how it can aim to consistently increase capacity of 5,000 guests whilst reducing car parking by roughly 50%, and how a reduction from 418 car parks to 200 car parks could be considered adequate provisions. The car parking survey also confirming that 38.2% of restaurant guests would go elsewhere if they could not find a car park. The Council's very own study acknowledging that a reduction in car parking would detract from existing assets of the area. This is not in line with Council's own recommendations for the Triangle site in supporting and not detracting from existing attractions and environmental assets. The car parking survey also highlighted that visitation and use of Triangle car park is represented by the following attendance: Luna Park 30%, St Kilda Beach 26.7%, Stokehouse 23.3%, Palace Theatre 10%, Ackland Street 6.7%, with a total percentage of 96.7%. Given the total visitation comes from 96.7% of surrounding assets and attractions, and given these local attractions have a shared capacity of 10 to 50,000, it's fair to say that an increase in numbers should only result in an increase in car parking.
Thank you. I call upon David Blakely, Fitzroy Street Business Association, speaking at item 10.1, St Kilda Triangle. Hello, David.
David Blakely, St Kilda, Fitzroy Street Business Association. Thank you, Mayor, councillors. I woke up this morning and looked at the Age and I was a bit horrified when they quoted me saying the Triangle's a place where good ideas come to die. It was a rambling sentence, I said, of course, which wasn't the point of my statement, which I did pinch on someone else. And not to be insulting to the councillors today or the council staff, lucky you're not presenting a new idea. It's something, there has been a venue on that site since about 1910. Do make this one fireproof, by the way. It's St Kilda, the vibrancy of St Kilda, which goes back generations. It goes back long before current attractions, apart from Luna Park, which was also the same builder of the Palace and the Palais de Dance. St Kilda has a vibrancy. It has a place in Melbourne's hearts. We rely on visitation, as the business on the beach, business on Fitzroy Street, etc. When the old Palace was burnt down, we saw a drop in trade on Fitzroy Street. A dramatic drop in trade. A drop in trade leads to empty shops, antisocial problems, and almost a feeling of helplessness for locals. Sometimes I looked at the Save the Triangle video the other day, where Moses had darker hair at least, or more hair, and I was saddened by the vibrancy he'd lost in that time, more than anything else. So my traders, who most of them in the music industry were at the launch the other day, this is the most exciting news we've had in years. Along with, it goes hand in hand with the music plan. So we welcome it, we hope that it comes through. We hope we can work through the negative aspects of it, which I'm sure we can. But I think it would be of not doing something is a bigger negative than working with the negatives we've got. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could stay there, David. Can you speak now to your other one you registered for 14.1, notice of motion, Fitzroy Street outdoor speakers, please.
Comfy chair. David Blakely, St Kilda, Fitzroy Street Business Association. About a bit over a month ago, four of our businesses unfortunately lost the ability to play ambient music outside. I had a distressing lot of phone calls and emails from my new traders who's not making money. Most of them aren't making money. Right? St Kilda's a difficult place in winter. This year is particularly difficult with the drop in spend, etc., paying back COVID debts, etc. So it was just too much for him. He was in distress. He said, I just wish I didn't open on Fitzroy Street. This is the last straw. The music played on the street, it's not just about, it shows that businesses are open. It fills an empty void, and it fills an empty space on the street. It sort of makes us, it feels a sense of inclusion and safety with music. We're not calling, and we do not want loud music played on the street, but ambient music, I think, has a role to play, and hopefully we can come to a conclusion that's beneficial for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Terence Seedsman, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore site plan. Hi, Terence. Name, suburb, and you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Terence Seedsman, long-term resident of Head Street, Brighton. I'm here to speak about what I believe to be infringement of human rights and disregard for the ethics under the Foreshore plan. All too frequently, municipal planning has incorporated an approach whereby streets have come to be seen as a natural domain of motorised traffic, instead of being a shared space accommodating other equally important concerns and needs. Unfortunately, the use of technical and transport engineering-based information and related data frequently acts as a mask for what is ultimately a political choice to prioritise motorised traffic over other equally important considerations. Head Street should be seen as a shared corridor of movement to and from Elwood Foreshore, and not just for motorised life. The question in need of satisfactory resolution is what constitutes a just street? A just street should surely be based upon the principles of access, safety, inclusivity, fellowship, equal rights for all and sundry. Modern-day neighbourhood planning should be focused upon designing livable streets with low traffic flows. The livable street concept is based upon the principle of human-centred thinking and emphasises the equality between cars, pedestrians and cyclists using the street. And there's enough evidence in the literature to support that. The current redevelopment proposal as it stands will most certainly lower the livability status of Head Street. It is unequivocally clear that the planning proposition for the redevelopment of the Elwood Foreshore by Port Phillip Council has social equity and social justice implications that require urgent attention and satisfactory resolution. Port Phillip Council has failed to incorporate a comprehensive ethical framework to guide its overall decision-making to ensure planning outcomes that support optimal street livability for residents, pedestrians and cyclists. Sadly, Head Street, is the context of the current planning approach, has become the quintessential territory.
Thank you, Terence.
Increased car parking.
I'm sorry to have to stop you there, but thank you very much for coming tonight. I call upon Jean Lee, speaking item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore site plan. Hi, Jean.
Jean Lee, Elwood. I've lived here for 20 years and is a member of the Elwood Croquet Club. My concern tonight is for the Elwood Croquet Club. It was founded in 1927. We have 2.5 courts that are positioned around the clubhouse, all of which we have outgrown. We are one of the few clubs that cater for the physical, social, and emotional well-being needs of older residents in Port Phillip. Over the past 5 years, our membership has grown by 135%. Even though croquet is played and enjoyed by all age groups, we particularly attract retirees and older members of the community. In the past 12 months, we have welcomed 500 community members to play our great game and enjoy our BYO license. These people have come via City of Port Phillip, Seniors Day, U3A croquet course, weekly come and try coaching sessions, and private groups that hold functions. Our courts open for play every day of the year. This has seen 3,700 games played by our members in the past 12 months. These games generally last for 2 hours. All this is so important for enjoying the game and the connections it creates. I have a question for you, Mayor. Is our new clubhouse to be shared with a sporting group in the park or to be used for community hire? We will very much like to work closely with Council to create an appropriately sized croquet club. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll take up your question at the item. Thank you. All right, I call upon Pam Herdman, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Hi, Pam.
Hi. I'm Pam Herdman from Elwood.
Thank you.
I've been a member of the Croquet Club for 7 years and the president for 4. A few issues that we have is we desire to have 3 full-size courts. The plan has 2.5 courts for us. We've grown significantly, and we believe we can reposition the courts from the linear base that you've drawn up in the plans to one where the 3 courts would be side by side between Head Street and Ormond Esplanade. Another point is, or it's perhaps a question, while Melbourne Water do the works at our courts, we would like to remain on site if possible or as close by. It appears that there will be room at the courts for us to remain and use a small area. I believe that if we went to wherever the Trugo Club or whatever, we'd be getting no more than what's left at our club. So that's our desire. We believe we may lose members if they have to travel to another site. One thing we have is a row of trees along the Head Street side of our court. They're Norfolk Island hibiscus, huge trees. They drop a lot of litter. We spend quite a lot of time raking that litter off the courts, and it gets pushed between the trees and the fence line. With the new bike path that's proposed, that fence line will be pushed. Oh, already?
Yeah, I know it's quick.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but that is a good point.
Who's going to be accountable for that litter?
Sure, we will take, officers can note that for a future
And also
response.
the clubhouse, the new clubhouse will have the...
Yes, all right. I think we'll take that up during the item to discuss it. It's a little bit out of our hands, but we'll come back to it. I call upon Mark White, speaking to 10.2 Elwood Foreshore as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Mark White, Elwood, representing at short notice Elwood Sailing Club. Our Commodore planned to speak tonight, but he's unwell. Ross Lloyd, our Commodore, has asked me just to put to the Council and the officers that the club had an expectation of meaningful consultation, particularly with the design of the new club rooms. I don't know if you're aware of the relative size difference, but the floor space would appear to be about 50% smaller. We, along with the Lifesaving Club, have concerns over the shared storage. We have a lot of members with quite expensive equipment, and to be frank, it's not a suitable space for general public and children to be wandering through. I guess the biggest concern from our club's perspective is, as our facility will be demolished under the plan and then rebuilt, we're looking at a period maybe of 18 months, 2 years for the new facility to become available. And then the facility is going to be about half the current floor space, which is about a quarter of the volume of the current building. We just question whether anyone's considered the actual ongoing viability of Elwood Sailing Club under this scheme. We're 99 years old. We're 100, celebrate our centenary next year, 2024, and it would be a real pity if we were left with an unviable facility that we couldn't generate sufficient revenues and attract sufficient members to keep going as a viable concern. A sailing club has is not a cheap place to run. We've got 4 power boats, 3 which are stored in St Kilda Marina, one of which is stored on site, the smaller one. And to run races takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of volunteers. We need to maintain our membership.
Thank you,
losing
Mark.
this storage would be...
Sorry to cut you off, but we understand that, and we'll
be a blow to
ask a question about that viability for you. Thank you. I call upon Bruce McCormish, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Hi, Bruce.
Hello. I'm Bruce McComish from Brighton. I speak for 10 and 12 Head Street. We have been residents of Head Street for nearly 20 years. We object to the undermining of public safety in Head Street. We object to allowing vehicular access to Elwood Park from Head Street. We object to the major increase of parking spaces and associated vehicle movements. It is misleading to estimate traffic numbers based on a survey conducted over a cool weekend in mid-August. Sorry, I beg your pardon, in mid-autumn. Traffic uses multiplies many times during the summer months and is completely hectic on hot beach days or for special park events such as triathlon. Head Street is a popular access road to the beach, the Bay Trail and Cycle Trail, as well as Elwood Park. This access is by pedestrians, dog walkers, joggers, cyclists and scooterists, as well as motor vehicles. Head Street is a narrow, dead-end residential street, so many use the roadway willy-nilly, often without due care and proper separation from vehicles. Separation between street and park is already poor, with many near misses as players heedlessly pursue fugitive balls as well as undisciplined pick-up and drop-off. Head Street is already a dangerous street, and the dangers will be greatly exacerbated by the proposed changes which will increase the traffic flow far more than calculated from the number of parking spaces because of the addition of traffic to the existing and proposed pavilions, the increase in speculative parkers, and the disruption of the flow from the awkward parking layout. When the street is busy, impatient drivers compete for spaces, increasing the likelihood of accidents. We had such a situation when a car crashed into our fence, writing off the car and damaging the fence. It was very lucky the car narrowly missed, pinning 2 pedestrians against the fence. The ladies concerned were very shocked and distressed. No one wants more accidents in the street.
Thank you, Bruce. I call upon Ian Pascal, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Hi, Ian.
Evening, Mayor and councillors. My wife and I are resident of Head Street and have been so for 31 years. In our opinion, the plan in part is based upon erroneous and flawed assumptions and statistics. Our principal objection is to the 70 perpendicular car spaces proposed by the master plan. Head Street is a very narrow street treated by many as a country lane with walkers, bike riders, runners and motorised scooters. In the 31 years of our residence, we see weekly many dangerous events occurring, including near misses between pedestrians, cars and cyclists and children running across the road between parked cars, all exacerbated by cars cruising up and down the street hunting for car parks. All of the above problems will be significantly exaggerated on major event days and especially during triathlons, and we can provide a lot of evidence in support of that proposition. The problems that will be created if the plan is implemented will impact on other residents of Bayside as detailed by Bayside Council's letter to the councillors of this particular council dated the 31st of August of this year. In short, Head Street is a very narrow road treated as a country lane, and any increase in traffic or obstructions in the form of additional car parks will increase substantially the risk of serious accidents. And I don't trivialise this. If we set up a time camera, we would find out immediately that all that is corroborated. So in our view, the only correct and sensible approach is to defer the vote on the proposal this evening, to commission further independent traffic and parking studies based on realistic and sound assumptions agreed between Port Phillip, Bayside and the street residents, followed by a meeting between Bayside Council, Port Phillip Council and the residents when the findings from those studies are in. Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you, Ian. That's allowed. Okay. Booing's not allowed, but we have about 9 or 10 more. Okay, just giving you that pacing. Sorry if I say this wrong. I call upon Guy Glasberg. Oh, really? Oh, thank good. Speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore.
Hello, my name is Guy Glasberg from Brighton. The site plan considers Elwood Foreshore as a whole but neglects to assess its impact outside of its boundaries. The car parking study is fraught with deficiencies. Firstly, it was conducted in April when the study deems traffic volume to be at the annual average. It then compares the expected annual average to Head Street's maximum capacity. Comparing an expected average to the maximum allowance is not a reliable comparison. The study does not consider the impact that reducing the main on-site car park and splitting it will have on the traffic flow and volume of Ormond Esplanade and surrounding streets as cars spill out hunting for spaces. The study assesses the occupancy of the main on-site car park in 1-hour intervals on a Saturday and Sunday in April, but does not assess the volume of the cars entering the car park looking for spaces. There is no question that the proposed split car parking arrangement will alter the behaviour and volume of traffic on Ormond Esplanade, St Kilda Street and surrounding streets. In summary, the Council has based its proposed site plan on a study with fundamental flaws and unsubstantiated assumptions. Based on the information presented, the Council has no realistic idea of what impact this site plan will have on traffic outside of the site plan's boundaries. The Council has a duty of care. It would be negligent of the Council to approve the site plan without careful considering the detrimental impact it will have to the accessibility and safety of Port Phillip residents and the broader community. The Council has not conducted a thorough and appropriate due diligence on the impact of the site plan will have on traffic in the area. Let the record show that today that I have asked the Council who will be responsible if the number of traffic accidents increase or if there is a fatality as a result of the lack of planning, particularly when the Council has been made aware of potential risks and safety to this car park may cause.
Thank you, Guy. I call upon Bianca Friedman, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Hi, Bianca.
Hi, my name is Bianca Friedman of Brighton, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owners and residents of Head Street Properties. One of the many formal objections relates to the design and location of the new multi-purpose and croquet clubhouse. It appears that the clubhouse will have to be built closer to the residential properties of Head Street, given that the croquet courts will now be towards Ormond Esplanade. We are very concerned about unreasonable amenity impacts on residents living near the new clubhouse, including overlooking, lighting, noise and nuisance issues, particularly if the premises will be hired out for events. Another one of our formal objections relates to consultation. The meeting notes suggest that the Mayor met with Head Street residents around September 22. Owners and residents of Head Street have confirmed that they were not involved in any direct consultation with anyone from the Council at that time and since then. Many of our neighbours are elderly and have difficulty navigating online surveys and accessing the project webpage. Others are currently residing overseas. Some have only just become aware of the master plan as a result of us notifying them. The car parking study was undertaken in April 22, but only made available last week. We were also not advised by Council that it had been made available, despite our correspondence demanding a traffic assessment. Meaningful consultation requires an in-depth discussion about the deficiencies in the car parking studies and consequences of relying on it. As my neighbours are addressing tonight, Head Street residents are deeply concerned about traffic, safety, flooding, speeding, loitering, casing, home invasions and other serious issues. It would be reckless of Council to approve this aspect of the master plan without first genuinely considering all of the formal objections and concerns raised in our letter of 31 August and reasonable alternatives. So firstly, what measures will be put in place to mitigate any unreasonable amenity impacts on residents living near the new clubhouse? And secondly, will you agree to a formal meeting with Head Street residents to arrive at a mutually satisfactory outcome and provide us with timely notifications about key documents and other developments?
Thank you, Bianca. Sorry, just let me catch my notes. Thank you. I call upon Glenys Fraser, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Good evening.
Glenys Fraser, Head Street, Brighton. The residents of Head Street have seen the steady erosion of their amenity, with Elwood Foreshore's transformation over the decades into a major sporting and recreational hub. Council's 1 week in April traffic study fails to capture the reality of what we see living in Head Street opposite the Sports Pavilion now for 31 years. The disruption, safety hazards and congestion reach their crescendo during corporate triathlon and other major events, with the influx of a mini army of infrastructure vehicles days ahead, and on race day, thousands of competitors, support crews and hospitality trucks hunting for car parks from 4 in the morning. Nor does the traffic study capture the influx of crowds in warmer months, which see swathes of traffic into Head Street, which will only increase with climate change. Weekdays too, the precinct is often busy day and night, with cars and school buses sitting with their engines running for protracted periods, dropping off kids for sports training, round robins, tuition clinics, and with the overbearing light towers frequently left on overnight, as recently as a month ago, and an array of rubbish left in their wake, much of which ends up in the bay, which sadly, as members of Elwood Beach Patrol, my husband and I witnessed firsthand. By relocating significant on-site parking to an off-site residential street such as Head Street, Council will not only exacerbate these impacts, but encourage vehicles to undertake longer, more circuitous routes to hunt for parking, directly counter to the urgent actions of cities across the globe to stem vehicle greenhouse gas emissions. I strongly urge Council to pause and explore a fairer, more sustainable outcome for all,
Glenys.
not just its own constituents.
Thank you. I call upon Anthony Kaiser, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Hi, Anthony.
Anthony Kaiser, Head Street. Try not to cover what everybody else has covered. Obviously, flawed study. Living the end of Head Street, peak time, it can take an hour to exit the street as the streets surrounding become gridlocked. One thing, and I've been coming to Head Street for 60 years. My father was playing soccer there before I became a resident. And so I've been heavily involved in sport. Now, one thing that doesn't go well is cars and sport. And you're proposing, from the road surface to the playing surface, the touch line, it's 8 metres. If you measure out any of your perpendicular car parks, it's 5.5 metres of space that you're going to be going into the reserve. You're also proposing to put in a bike lane. So if, on my calculations, the cars are going to be butting up to the playing surface. You may say we'll move the oval over, but that's not possible because you've got lighting towers and a clubhouse there. And the other thing, balls and cars cause damage. Now, you're proposing to put access to the clubhouse going behind the goals, and from a non-professional player kicking a soccer ball, it goes at about 70 kilometres an hour, which you're proposing to have cars 2 metres behind that. I wonder if the council is going to be responsible for the damage for people parking there, because it's just totally illogical. The other thing is, if you come down to Head Street any night, the number of children going on to Head Street to retrieve balls is high. You put perpendicular car parking there, those same kids coming out, you're only asking for a disaster. So from a practicality of anyone using Head Street, from a sporting perspective, you need to have the car park away from playing surfaces. You make the comment in your report that there's car parks next to other parks. These are not sporting parks. Elwood Foreshore is used by sports most weekends, most days. So to say that you're going to put car parking there when it won't even fit, I think is stupid. I mean, you say...
I'm sorry, it's past 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anthony, for coming down tonight.
There's another lady who was going to talk. Can I take her 2 minutes?
What is your name so I can take him? Maria. Okay, that's you. Okay, sure, that's fine, if you agreed to it.
Okay. You say you consulted with the council. So Zoe Daniels, federal member for Parliament, currently sitting in Canberra, unable to attend. Been in touch with her office. She's been in touch with Port Phillip to suggest that she's not happy with it. You obviously heard from James Newbury before, objecting to it. The Mayor of Bayside is here.
Right, Anthony, can I pause you real quick? I think we thought you were reading her statement because you might have forgotten your glasses. Is that what we heard before? Is that...
What was that?
No?
No.
Okay. All right, I'll give you 1 more minute, okay? Just to be fair.
Okay, so anyway, so you say you have collaboration, but the whole of Head Street's against it, federal member, state member, Bayside Council's against it, and you push on as if it's a collaborative environment. You don't adhere to your own bylaws of what you state is recognises the value of a partnered approach to managing the amenity of a municipality. I mean, as I said, as residents, I think you have united us, and I think if it gets up, it won't be the end of this. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Anthony. And so, Maria, I've removed you from the list, so I'll go on to Louise Treguthar. Speaking of item 10.2, sorry.
Hi, I'm Louise Treguthar from Elwood. Yep, I represent a group of concerned residents who live on and around Ormond Esplanade and whose front yard is essentially the much-loved Elwood Foreshore. We've watched the work done by the Council on this proposal since 2020 and actively participated in all of the opportunities to provide input and feedback. To that end, I would like to thank some members of the Council who have responded to my queries and concerns. Unfortunately, we feel that most of the community consultation has been tokenistic and there has been no real opportunities presented for the general public to meet with the Council to discuss this proposal. It does seem some of the feedback provided by the clubs has been taken into account. However, our view is that this proposal has been subject to a preconceived agenda and that during the community consultation activities, the questions and diagrams presented to the public are essentially engineered to steer the whole process towards a predetermined solution. So, our concerns. We accept that the work may be required to upgrade some ageing and non-compliant club facilities. However, much of the other proposed work is unnecessary and expensive, quoted at $50 million. We feel there's been inadequate consideration of alternative options and the associated costings that would retain key features of the foreshore that deserve protection. We think money could be saved by looking at these 4 areas. One is the restaurant and the bar. Moving these venues is both undesirable and unnecessary. The building is actually on a 1.5 millimetre platform, so not subject to sea inundation. Relocating it would destroy the view and the ambience of the venue. Also, consideration could be given to a stretch of sea wall from the drain outlet pier to the toilet block near Point Ormond to protect from sea level rises. There are a lot of sea walls along Port Phillip, as people would know. Car parking and bike path. Relocating the car park away from the beach serves no purpose in terms of removing pedestrian, bike and car conflicts. Okay. I have other questions. Is there another opportunity to ask questions?
You can email if you wanted real quickly to the councillors. That would work, yeah? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I call upon Councillor Hannah L. Muelam, Mayor of Bayside City Council. Welcome to our council meeting. You're speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore Site Plan.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and council officers. My name is Hannah Al-Muallim, Mayor of Bayside City Council, resident of Brighton. Thank you for the opportunity to speak against the recommendation for item 10.2 on tonight's agenda. I would appeal to Council to reconsider this matter before formally endorsing a position. The proposed Elwood Foreshore Master Plan, if endorsed as proposed, will render the existing soccer pitch unusable, at least one of them. And we've heard from Mr. Keys about this. It is actually landlocked. You cannot do anything about it. It also would have major impact on Head Street. I would firstly like to start by highlighting the disappointment that Bayside Council has felt due to the lack of true engagement with our council over the last 18 months. The papers for this evening meeting also include major gaps, and I consider that there has not been adequate analysis undertaken in the preparation of the proposed master plan to allow your council to make an informed decision on its suitability. These concerns relate to the impact on the existing oval, impact on traffic, parking and amenity. This appeal for your reconsideration of this item is made on the following basis. 1, the inadequacy of the car parking study, including the fact that the parking survey is conducted over a weekend in April 2022. 2, the impact of additional traffic on Head Street appears to be optimistically estimated. 3, vehicles not being able to access Head Street from Port Phillip, meaning they will have to circulate through local Bayside streets. 4, minimal traffic analysis, including the implication for the Head Street and St Kilda Street intersection. And 5, the redesign of the north side of Head Street does not allow suitable widths for the installation of angled parking, shared paths and runoff area for the sports field. We feel there would be major community risk if an attempt were made to accommodate all these items within this location. If the master plan was to proceed as currently proposed, Bayside City Council would be forced to implement a number of interventions, and that will hurt your residents on St Kilda and other streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hanna.
A point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes, what's the point of order, please?
I felt that the last statement was a threat around having alternative measures directed at the City of Port Phillip if we were to approve this master plan.
Apologies if you believe it is a threat, I'll withdraw it, but it will have an impact.
Okay, sorry,
on
just in our governance rules. Just pause. Real quick, thank you. Okay. Sorry, normally it would be I would stop you, but you've already, and I'd ask you to withdraw. You've already done that, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I call upon Isaac Herman, speaking to item 10.2, Elwood Foreshore. Now, just before you get started, I only have one more that's filled in a blue form that's on my list. Is there somebody else who thinks they're speaking tonight that we haven't, that is not accounted for yet? Serge, I have you on the form. Yeah, you're on the form, so you're good. So you're next. All right, Isaac, go ahead.
Thank you. Isaac Herman, of course, from Elwood. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and council officers. Firstly, I'd like to commend council officers on their very thorough and considerate community consultations to date. So I can hear that Head Street residents weren't all that pleased or satisfied. And thank you for this opportunity to comment on this historically extremely contentious site. Before approving this plan, I feel that some in-principle assurances, though touched on in the plan, should be more thoroughly spelt out and adopted. Firstly, to respect and adopt best science overall regarding the health of the bay and best stormwater practice in particular. As Crown land managers, Council should be more critical of the sizeable infrastructure crossing through this site. And I speak, of course, about the Elwood main drain. The CSIRO papers would consider this type of new Elwood main drain a very bad idea indeed. Secondly, to mitigate any further harm to the land in the bay, by fully adhering to Plan Melbourne and Planning Amendment VC 154 to offset these new drain augmentation works. Council should by now recognise that the bay is a continuation of our catchments. Also, to remove and remediate contaminated soil lawfully. That is not transferring contaminated material to neighbouring reserves that are distinctly separate Crown land allotments. Question, where do you now plan for all the contaminated soil to go? And please, please don't dump it in the tea tree again. Not responding to the foreseen, predicted and forewarned destruction of millions of dollars of recent foreshore investments with regard to the Elwood Reserve upgrades, now to be torn up by Melbourne Water with their new augmentation drain. Council should realise that this recent experience, that by this time this plan is fully implemented, Melbourne Water may wish to once again rip up the area to replace the deteriorating current Head Street diversion drain due to saltwater corrosion. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last one I have, Serge Toman. I call upon Serge Toman to speak to item 10.1, the St Kilda Triangle. Hi, Serge.
Hi, all. Good evening, all. I was going to remind councillors of the statement that the council...
Name and
Serge, sorry, I forgot I should know that.
You should.
Serge Toman, resident and trader. Let me just first, I was going to remind councillors of the statement we all signed, but one in 2016, but with the lack of time, I'm not going to do that. But I would like to stress, as I've said before, that I'm disappointed that the council only addressed one narrow option, and that council should have taken the opportunity offered by the federal and state members to develop and pay for a three-party run business plan. For me, whatever is built on the site should be active day and night, 7 days a week, all year round, and bring people to St Kilda just for one night to a concert. This is the only way that this will be the way and the case that will be a game changer for St Kilda. This is only the beginning of the consultation, and lots of questions will arise. I've just got a few. How much will it cost? When will council look at who is going to pay for it? It seems that council is heavily relying on the state government. Has it been consulted as part of a feasibility study? Has council considered the loss of revenue of the car park and parking fines raising nearly $2 million a year? Does council think that the view lines from the Esplanade and from Jacob Boulevard are respected as described in the UDF? The new building is 20 metres tall, 2.5 times taller than the previous palace buildings, 3 times the size, and 14.6 metres higher than the Esplanade. Has council considered the impact of such a large licensed venue on other existing business, especially when it comes to traffic and car parking and residence amenity? Has a traffic study been done? Currently, the Palais, Luna Park and the Foreshore restaurants being active, there is already nearly 10,000 people in the vicinity on a busy day, plus beachgoers, etc. 240 car space is not efficient, and a traffic study will mostly demonstrate that. For dancing, the venue will become a nightclub and will require 3 AM license. Has police been consulted? Will council make the tender specification and selection process transparent and give confidence to its ratepayer? And I'd just like to correct a figure on the report, page 57. To accommodate 4,000 people in the auditorium, the surface should be 3,000 square metres according to the Liquor Licence Commission requirement of 0.75 square metres per person. Thank you.
Oh, perfectly timed. Well done. Thank you. All right, that is the end of who I have on my list. But we're going to go through a few more things. We're going to do councillor question time, ceiling schedule, and a petition, and then we'll take a break, okay? So I know we've been sitting here a little while. Okay, on to councillor question time. Councillors, do you have any questions you would like to raise that are of general nature, not to do with an item on the agenda tonight? Councillor Sierkoff?
Thank you, Mayor. Pretty basic one. Following our local laws that were implemented on the 1st of August, has Council had the opportunity to engage with supermarkets about adding distance limiting devices on their trolleys so that we don't have them in the streets?
Thank you. Who would you like to refer to? CEO?
Through you, Mayor. I'll have to take that one on notice. I'm not sure because I've got a couple of officers away tonight, so normal people probably won't be prepared for that. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Yagri?
Thank you, Mayor. How many kilometres of on-road separated bike lanes does Port Phillip have, and how many have been built since the adoption of the integrated transport strategy? Of those, how many kilometres have been funded by council?
Thank you. Do you have further questions that we can answer this in one go?
I do, but they're
Go
all
ahead.
related but not on the same topic.
Thank you. Go ahead. We'll go with one answer. The non-bike lanes?
I would rather ask them individually, Mayor, if possible.
All right. Yep, we'll go one by one. I think you have 11 questions.
A few.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I can advise that as of June 2022, Port Phillip had 265 kilometres of road and 59 kilometre network of bike lanes and paths and 414 kilometres of footpaths. There are 38 kilometres of on-road bike infrastructure in Port Phillip, including about 4.5 of separated on-road bike lanes. This includes Fitzroy Street, St Kilda Road, Moray Street, Cecil Street, and temporary infrastructure along Park Street. Following strong advocacy by the City of Port Phillip, the Victorian Government has delivered the St Kilda Road protected bike lane between the St Kilda Junction and Dorcas Street. And this amounts to approximately 3 kilometres delivered within the City of Port Phillip.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes. How many kilometres of off-road separated bike lanes does Port Phillip have, and how many have been built since the adoption of the integrated transport strategy?
Of off-road, there's approximately 21 kilometres of off-road bike paths and shared paths across the City of Port Phillip. Since 2020, Garden City Bike Corridor had been delivered by Council, and this included approximately 1 kilometre of bike path, and that connects 2 existing treatments of the Bay Trail and the Sandridge Trail.
Thank you. I've got another question here. This is a slightly bigger one, but how many kilometres, if possible, of on-road separated bike lanes does the cities of Melbourne, Bayside, Glenara, Stonington, Marybeck, Yarra and Darebin have?
For that question, Council Officer is going to have to take that on notice, as we'll have to request that information from those councils.
No worries. I have another question, Mayor. Thank you. Excluding off-road paths like the Bay Trail, are any of the 11 identified routes currently identified through the integrated transport strategy currently fully separated bike lanes from end to end?
In short, no. Moray Street is partially separated, including separated roundabouts, and Garden City is also partially separated with off-road.
Thank you. I have another question, Mayor. Do any current separated bike corridors connect with other separated bike corridors within the city?
The connecting trails are the Bay Trail, Garden City Trail and the Sandridge Trail, as previously outlined.
Thank you. Does Council consider Moray Street, South Melbourne and Fitzroy Street, St Kilda corridors complete, given that neither are currently connected and separated the entire length?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Improvements can always be made to bike infrastructure network, and Council looks for opportunities across state government projects and other road safety improvements to continue to connect existing infrastructure.
Thank you. Do we know what the top 5 most dangerous bike corridors are in Port Phillip? And would Council have any possible legal liability for accidents on those corridors if they are identified as dangerous and we chose not to upgrade them?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Officers will have to take that question on notice because we'll have to do some data analysis in regard to that.
Thank you. Can Council officers provide an update on the status of the Park Road bike corridor?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, the Park Street endorsed improvement project between St Kilda Road and Kingsway is programmed for construction 24-25. This construction was postponed to allow for the completion of interfacing projects that were happening that needed to use that road space as well. The temporary bike lane between Kingsway and Moray Street, which connects to the Moray Street bike lane, was completed in 2022, August. And aligning with Council's decision, the temporary infrastructure will remain in place until the delivery of the Victorian Government's Park Street tram link.
Thank you. And one final one. Can Council officers provide an update on when options for the Inkerman Road bike corridor will be released for public consultation?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Officers are currently preparing a report with the intention to present that to Council in October with the decision or recommendation to put the options out for public consultation. If the decision is made to go on public consultation, that will occur shortly after that decision.
Thank you. I had one unprepared question.
Okay.
It's not related to bike paths. I understand that in I think it's 2020 or 2021, Council changed from an from a timetable to an on-demand service for our older persons transport bus. I was just wondering if we had any data on whether there had been a reduction of patronage since that change, or an increase, or stayed the same.
Okay.
Maybe for that to be on notice.
Yeah, on notice. Unless you have the information now. On it.
No, we'll take that one on notice.
Okay, and that'll be as part of the minutes. Thank you very much. All right, so move on to sealing schedule. Councillors, we have no items for sealing on tonight's agenda. So on to item 7, which is petitions and joint letters. Councillors, we have one petition but no joint letters on tonight's agenda. 7.1 is a petition called Request to Implement Clause 59 in order to control short stay accommodation. Do councillors have any questions of the officers in relation to this item? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Can officers advise, has there been time set aside for councillors and officers to discuss the issues raised in this petition and other matters relating to short stay accommodation in the next couple of weeks?
See you. Sorry.
Sorry, it's Lisa Davis online,
Hi, Lisa.
but I must apologise. I couldn't quite hear the question. Could you repeat it, please, Councillor Martin?
No problem, Ms Davis. Are council officers aware of any time that's been set aside for councillors and council officers to discuss the issues raised in this petition and any other issues pertaining to short stay accommodation in the weeks leading up to the October council meeting?
Lisa?
Thank you through you, Mayor. A briefing has been prepared for councillors, which will occur in the next couple of weeks, and the matters raised in the petition will be covered in that, as will other matters like what other councils are doing in the short stay accommodation regulation space.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I look for a mover of this item, Councillor Martin, and a seconder, Councillor Bond. You guys are on fire tonight. Okay. Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
Thank the petitioners for their petition, and as they've just heard, the matters that they've raised will be taken very seriously by council, and there will be a response coming back at the October 4 or October 5 council meeting.
4th, yes. Councillor Baum, would you like to speak to it? No. I'll just say thank you, James, coming tonight and sharing your experience again. It's really important for us to understand what people are experiencing, but we will look to see this come back at that next meeting, or if it has to be any later than that. Okay, councillors, anybody else speaking to it? Otherwise, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. I promised a break, so we are spot on 8 p.m. or a few seconds before, so let's come back at 8:05. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry that wasn't quite 5 minutes. It was 10 minutes, but we all needed a break anyways. But we'll get right back into it. If everyone could take their seats, please. So we'll go into the presentation of reports now. The first one up is a triangle, and then we get to Elwood. I know many of you are here for Elwood tonight. So if you could be patient with us through the first item if it's not what you're here for. Let's get started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still don't have Councillor Pearl. I haven't heard from him. Has anybody heard from Councillor Pearl? Okay. Shall we make him an official apology? Or no? All right. Well, hopefully he's okay and can get here soon. He might be here a while. He might show up. Okay, let's get started. Presentation of reports. First one up is 10.1, St Kilda Triangle. Is this what you meant? The screen looks different tonight? Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a live music venue, design feasibility report, and community engagement. Chris Carroll, you've already done your declaration, but you don't need to leave for this. Just want to... Okay, great. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to this report? Councillor Bond?
There was a report in the Age today which I believe incorrectly states that we hadn't done any work in the into the financials or the business case or the costings of this particular proposal we're dealing with tonight. Can officers just briefly outline the work we have done on the costings and that proposal? They don't need to give us any numbers because that's not part of it tonight. It's probably commercial in confidence, which is why we're not making it public. But if they could outline just the steps in the process that's occurred to date on what we've done from a financial point of view and a costing point of view for this project, just to reassure those in the community who may be of the belief we haven't done that work, that that work has in fact been done.
I'll refer to Joanne McNeil.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. Work is well underway to cost the development of the whole proposal, the whole concept or idea that we're testing and that we're requesting to consult with the community on. It is a work in progress and it includes looking at funding and procurement models. And we have done some preliminary costings and we are testing those assumptions and costings currently, so that is a work in progress. We will be reporting to the public on that information, what we can release to the public towards the end of the year. I think it will likely be the final meeting of the year. We do need to be careful in framing what we can share of the commercial analysis. We're doing a commercial analysis as well as just simply costing up the development, and part of that is looking at what is a realistic, practical approach to deliver on this project, and that includes considering what the role of the market is and how we go about that to get the best value outcome for the community. So we're being very careful about how we proceed, and we also want to make sure that we have the best possible information for the public. We know that once numbers start being put out there, that they are hard to then adjust over time, and we know that the preliminary work that we're doing at the moment, those numbers will likely change. So this step of the project, just to reiterate, is about answering a number of questions. The first question is there appetite in the market for a live music and performance venue? And we've answered that question. Yes, there is. It does seem to be, and we want to test that further. The second part of that is, does it fit on the triangle? And what else can fit? So we've done a test fit. We've tested the idea, and we're now engaging with the community on that idea if council choose to do that tonight. And the third part of that is, what does the community think of the idea that we've come up with? And it's not a design, it's an idea, and it's a test fit of an idea. There's lots and lots of work to go if this idea were to progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bond?
The other bit of incorrect information in the paper today was that we have not spoken to the state government as yet. Can officers outline just very, very briefly discussions we've had with the state government to date and any discussions we propose to have with the state government in the coming weeks as part of this consultation, which is going out to our community and other stakeholders that we are voting on here tonight?
Joanne McNeill.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, we have been in contact with Creative Victoria and talked to them about the idea and the approach that we're taking. We've also been in contact with all of the relevant ministers and local MPs to let them know what we're doing and to start engaging on the idea. And there's further work that we will be undertaking with them. The idea is for further contact if council decide to engage with the community on this idea tonight.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Niagri?
Two questions. Firstly, sort of following on from Councillor Bond's question, there was sort of a question or an assertion that we had that there'd been undertakings made by the state government in 2018 or at some point in sort of recent but not recent past, and that we had, as council, not engaged or refused to engage. Can we just? You might not know, but can we clarify whether we have been engaging with the state government on this site?
Joanne McNeill. Through you, Mayor, there was an offer of support for a business case a number of years ago, and council since that time has undertaken to work out a way forward for the site and then undertake this work, and that is all leading towards a business case if council choose to proceed with this project.
And the other question was just around, we're not in detailed design, this is still a concept, but in terms of the kind of existing master plans and planning frameworks, does this proposal sit within those, and if not, where and why?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This idea has been framed within the context of the 2016 master plan, which was developed in consultation, extensive input from the community, and we think it's very important that we show how the current idea reflects the important aspects of the master plan. Things have changed since 2016, The whole concept of the 2016 master plan was based around a large cultural institution being located on the site. That hasn't come to fruition yet. And so this idea that has been explored is to replace that original idea, but obviously other things need to change in order to allow that to fit. So this project has looked at what are the important things that we need to take out of that master plan and keep the integrity of as we move into a new idea. And we're really keen to hear from the community on have we taken the right things from that master plan? Is there anything else that we need to consider? So we're really keen to hear from anyone who can give us some understanding of, that 2016 master plan. Is there anything else from that we need to consider as we move forward?
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I have one. Taking up a question tonight about the traffic survey. So when would an independent traffic assessment can be done, maybe on a concept, and available to the community?
Thank you, Mayor. Traffic management is a really important consideration, and it is something, if Council were to choose to proceed with this idea, that would be part of the next stage of planning for this project. So at the moment, we're just at idea stage. We're testing a concept, and we're really keen to engage early with the community. So not all of the answers, all the questions have been answered yet. It's about working with the community to make sure we're shaping up the next stage of the project to answer all of the questions we need to make sure we deliver a viable, deliverable project that fits with this site and the needs of the community and the broader community.
Thank you. Last call for questions. All right. I'll look for a councillor to move this or something else. Councillor Bond to move. Councillor Clark to second. Councillor Bond, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's with great pleasure I move this. Not just an agenda item tonight, but it's a very important parcel of land for the St Kilda community, and has been throughout my entire time on council. I've been through many iterations of this particular process, orange documents, purple documents, you name them, we've been through it, and yet we've arrived at one tonight, which I'm very, very keen to support. I was reminded by former Councillor Taman of a document in 2016 that 6 councillors signed and 1 refused to sign. No guesses as to who the one councillor was who refused to sign that document because it was completely unworkable, financially unviable, and was never going to be achieved. And I think it's safe to say that 7 years down the track, that's proven to be the case. There's been zero interest in that particular proposal, so we've looked at something different that we think is viable and achievable, and that was one of the key things we spoke about here tonight. With right through this process, is whatever we do has to be achievable. I know I thought a little bit of what I would say, but I know there's a number of other people who've been on this journey throughout the various iterations, and some have been on this journey for, we're talking decades longer than I have, and I think I've been doing it a long time. Councillors received a very pleasant email yesterday from someone who's been heavily involved in this site over the time. Spoke to her over phone, and she's given me permission to read out her email. That is one of our residents, Christina Kinst, who's one of those people who I can absolutely guarantee would have read every word of every document involving the St Kilda Triangle 2 or 3 times over the last 30 years. So this is someone who has put so much time and effort and energy into this, actually reading everything, actually understanding everything. Christina and I have agreed on a lot with this process over the last 10 years. We've disagreed on some things, agreed to disagree, and moved on. And I'll read the email we all as councillors received from her yesterday. Dear Mayor and Councillors, congratulations on steering a common sense feasibility study to deliver, finally, a sensible triangle site plan grounded in reality and viability. The report's strength is that it pares back the excesses of the master plan from 2016, yet is not inconsistent with the master plan's cultural direction, nor the principles outlined in the planning scheme St Kilda Foreshore Urban Design Framework 2002. The concept is simple, practical and potentially achievable. The following aspects of the report impressed me. Its return to basics, focusing on the land to the west of the Palais, bound by Jacker Boulevard and Lower Esplanade, where historically the site carried numerous buildings for amusement and entertainment. It retains and preserves Catani's grassy slopes as a much-loved and important heritage landscape feature, public space and pedestrian connection, putting an end to the costly and unnecessary re-engineering of the Esplanade balcony just to fit more lettable space and or car parking. It creates a logical ground-level connection to the foreshore along the Lower Esplanade to meet Jacker Boulevard at a relocated pedestrian crossing that aligns with the foreshore's entrance, completing the vision started in the mid-2000s foreshore makeover. It takes a rational approach to on-site car parking, recognising the availability of other parking options nearby and ample public transport alternatives, saving money on expensive soil remediation and digging below sea level. It promotes a fit-for-purpose use that builds on St Kilda's and the Triangle's history as a live music destination. In summary, the feasibility report demonstrates a workable approach respectful of established features, connections and structures. Too much time and money have been wasted over the past 20 years chasing grandiose reimaginings, international acclaim and maximum lettable space to boost rates when all that was needed was a music venue for modern times on the site of its predecessors, the Palace and Palais de Dance. I could not have said it better myself, and I'm happy to commend the words of Christina Kintz to the meeting, and I support them wholeheartedly and urge my fellow councillors to also support those words of Christina and the motion before us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. After spending many years, as Councillor Bond has outlined, and many millions of dollars delivering very little, this is a realistic and positive step forward with a proposed facility that is not only needed in the City of Port Phillip but potentially across Melbourne, is respectful of our environment, our existing traders and our surrounding areas. I'm very supportive of the facility having car parks to ensure that we not only support this venue but the other foreshore traders. It is very difficult to get a large amount of car parks other than what's been outlined in the proposal and balance up all elements of this project to make it viable. All past options and master plans have come to a dead end. For those who have presented negative views tonight, we respect and I respect your views. However, I note there are no other suggestions to alternatives or viable proposals. In my 3 years on council, one of the things I've learnt and had no way of knowing was one of the key pain points has been the lack of a live music option or some similar venue for similar type of entertainment. It's one of the constant arguments, if you like, we have in council about competing interests, car parks, music venues and other entertainment on that space. It became very obvious to me that this is probably one of the facilities that we do need in our municipality. And with the research that we've done, we believe this is a viable facility for the Greater Melbourne as well. What's the alternative? We sit there with a car park for another 5 years, ignoring sort of and trying to find viable projects that will enhance our municipality and also the lives of Melburnians. I'd hope to see greater support, and we obviously welcome feedback. We're not saying that we've got everything right, and we certainly don't have all the detail. So we do need that feedback, which is what this process is part of. But we are hoping to see some support for a much-needed facility, a fantastic use of the existing space, and we have had detailed discussions ongoing over many months. Taking into account, where we failed in the past and why this one might be a more viable option. We've worked through a detailed process with experts, as one of the council officers outlined, and the industry to make sure that this is a viable enough proposition to take to consultation. As I said before, not everything has been determined. We're not suggesting it has, and it is a very large cost, but it is achievable. And will be a great facility for the whole of Victoria if we're able to pull this together. So welcome your feedback. very happy to take this to consultation and move it forward in the next step of the process. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak to it? Councillor Nyagui.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of those sites that I think anyone who's lived in and around St Kilda for a long time or come and visited St Kilda has kind of scratched their head and gone, how the hell did a car park end up there? This is such a beautiful and cherished part of Melbourne, and yet we have in the very heart of it something very, very ugly and underutilised. Obviously, we've had a number of proposals come and die on this site over many years, and I think often probably my criticism would be, and I think it's a criticism that many would make, is that they tried to be all things to all people. They tried to satisfy everyone and in the end satisfied no one. They were too complicated. They tried to do too many things, which has, I think, led to failure again and again. I wasn't part of the original decision to sort of make this be the proposal we look at, but when I came onto council in February, March, and learned about this proposal in more depth in some of the confidential meetings and got to understand it, and as I've worked through it with my fellow councillors and staff over the last sort of 6 months, I've come to the view that I think this is a sensible, realistic proposal. It provides a really good option, idea, solution to this site, one that I'm quite excited about. I don't think it's perfect. I think there's a lot of detail that needs to be worked through still. Parking will certainly be a challenge, though I would note that most of the venues of this size, people generally don't come by car. They will generally come by public transport or other means. But I think ultimately we need to make some difficult decisions at the earlier stages of these processes, because if we continually say yes to everyone and continually say we can make it work for everyone, we'll get to a point where we have another St Kilda triangle that needs to be knocked on the head. And I don't think anyone in this room or anyone anywhere in St Kilda or the rest of Melbourne want to have anything like that repeat itself again. I think the strength of this proposal is we're making a couple of difficult decisions at the very beginning. We're deciding on a particular use for the site. We're keeping it simple. We're keeping it simple in a way that means it can be financially viable. We don't need to add 1,001 other things. It won't be perfect, and maybe it won't come off, but I'm quietly optimistic that this proposal is one that can get up and we can finally have something positive on the site, and something that ultimately will be a part of our broader vision for St Kilda. St Kilda's gone through a number of different alignments over the years, but this current focus, we've obviously now become, or in the process of becoming the first live music precinct, is an exciting one. And I think this particular proposal fits so neatly within that, which is what excites me about it. But it's not just that. It's going to be some lovely open space. It retains the slopes, which Christina, I know, is very, very keen on. But the whole area around this site will become something that I think is very positive and enjoyable for everybody who comes and visits St Kilda, lives in St Kilda, works in St Kilda. So that's why we're supporting this, and I'm really excited to hear what the community have to say on it.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
First, I'd like to thank Councillor Bond, who his drive and enthusiasm helped us resurrect this project, which had lain dormant for a long time, with councillors in previous years being too nervous to do anything because of all the issues that arose in the days of the Triangle War. So thank you, Councillor Bond. We probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your enthusiasm. Thank you to the officers who've done an extensive amount of research that have got us to this stage where we can go to the public and say, what do you think about it? I've had a number of residents contact me very concerned that we hadn't consulted about going out to consultation, and I suppose we could consult about consulting, but I note that in the motion itself, we note under 3.6 we're endorsing the commencement of community engagement to seek feedback on the findings in the Triangle Feasibility Study. So this is the start of a very long process. We've heard people tonight. I'm sure we'll be hearing people over the next 6 weeks during the consultation process, and I'm sure that there'll be some changes made based on the feedback that we've got. But as Councillor Nyagui has said, this has lain dormant for a long time. I'm old enough to remember walking from my flat in Octavia Street to the old Palace nightclub and crawling home again. I'm sure that the new proposal is going to be, I think, a far more family-friendly venue than the one that I used to frequent back in the 70s. I think this is great, and I look forward to the result of the consultation process and any improvements that we can make on where we are at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Sierikov.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also supportive of this proposal to go to the next stage and for Council to engage with the community for further feedback. To start the feedback. And it's mainly on the 3 areas that's outlined in the plan, that is a flexible and multi-purpose venue for a 5,000 standing capacity, whether that be for concerts, corporate events, and maybe even a track gala footy events, and it also includes smaller spaces for commercial celebrations and exhibitions. So this is a type of a venue that will be inclusive of all types of activities, celebrations. So I think it's going to be multi-purpose. So we can whoever decides to take this upon themselves, that we can have events day and night. And also in the plans is a 240 car park to not only serve the patrons of the proposed venue, but also businesses in this premium location of the St Kilda Precinct. And for those who travel from far away, who are just going to be there for the day or evening and then return home at the end of the same day. This past Sunday, the successful Father's Day car show on Ackland Street demonstrated the demand for car parking to make the event a successful event for all businesses. And also, not to forget, there is the inclusion of the public open space in these plans, which will be a beautiful attraction during those times when, those quiet times when people are just going to the beach or want to go out for a walk. So it's going to be a beautiful venue. It's not going to be boundary to boundary with buildings. It's going to have that open space, so it's going to be a great place to go to. Also, I see as a positive outcome for this project, and that is we should also consider in the background the GRP, that is the Gross Regional Product of Port Phillip. This is a monetary measure of the market values of all final goods and services in our region. The Port Phillip economic indicators show that, 1, Port Phillip has had significant job losses of 7,400 full-time employees over 5 years to June 22. Jobs in the retail sector and accommodation and food services have also declined over the past 5 years to June 22, with a loss of 369 FTEs and 1,685 FTEs respectively in those sectors. Tourism, employment and revenues have declined in that same 5-year period, with a loss of some 3,820 FTE jobs, along with an associated loss in revenue of $1.1 billion from $2.7 billion to $1.6 billion. These are some of the reasons why we need to revitalise and stimulate the economy of St Kilda and for Port Phillip by considering the next stages of this proposed multi-purpose venue. This is the opportunity where we can attract more jobs, improve the economy and enrich St Kilda overall, plus Port Phillip overall. So this is a great time to revitalise, enrich and bring jobs back to the city of Port Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Sarakoff. Welcome, Councillor Pearl. We're on item 10.1, the St Kilda Triangle. Everyone's spoken but you or me. Would you like to add?
Vote for it. It's a good proposal. It's well thought through. It's been a huge investment of the city to get to this point. It's always disappointing in some respects that you spend all this money and you get a lovely document and it says some good things and it says some bad things, but it's a necessary part of the process. It is a very large project that is being proposed here and it will have ramifications for many, many decades to go. So the investment that Council's made up to this point is wise and it's reasonable given the size of the project, and the document covers a number of things that we should all be very cognisant of, but overall very, very supportive of the recommendation that you see in front of you here tonight, councillors.
Thank you. All right. I did forget to ask the question what colour we're thinking for this iteration, but it won't hopefully sit on a shelf. Now, I went to architecture school overseas, so I didn't get the privilege of using the triangle as our site term project, which many architecture students have done because it's such a blank canvas after the last fire. There are so many ideas among the community that will be looking at it like that and the people in our own community who thinks what we should do here. But the work that's been done to date has a viable option, and I think it's one that we should take to our community now, because that's what we're voting on tonight, to take it to the community to hear what they have to say. We have heard from some of our significant, wonderful existing attractions, Luna Park, Stokehouse, the Foreshore Traders tonight. It's important that we also listen to the feedback there and we understand the concerns about parking, and we're not to be dismissive of that. An activation of this area around a weekday, daytime use is something we also want to look at, and I think that's great that we have the flexible spaces integrated into the proposal as it is, and it can be further enhanced with our community engagement. So I will be voting for this tonight. Councillor Bond, would you like to close?
Yes, just very briefly. I think Councillor Nawagi reminded me of something while he was speaking. I would like to thank our officers who I can very safely say listened to us as councillors throughout this process. The bit Councillor Nawagi reminded me of is that we remain disciplined. These previous iterations have failed because we've tried to make them do all things to all people and solve absolutely everyone's problems, that they got to the point where they were just unworkable. We remain very disciplined in this, and I thank officers for that. They kept post-it notes and red dots to a minimum. I also thank them for that. I would like to thank the consultants we had working with us to get us to this point in time, Patrick, James, Rob and their various teams who have helped us with music, venues, industries, finances, design and all that sort of thing. They were all very, very good to work with. They all listened. They all took on board the feedback and came back to us with some fantastic work. So I thank them all. I'm sure I've left people out, but once you start naming people, you always do that. So you know who you are if I've left you out. Thank you all and appreciate the work you've done to get us to this point.
Thank you. All right, we're ready to take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, now we're on to 10.2, which is the Elwood Foreshore site plan. I appreciate you all here tonight and online 2 hours into the meeting already. We have the opportunity that councillors may take up your question. It's not guaranteed, and it's not because we don't care. Maybe we forgot or got it wrong. But I just want to remind people that if this is supported tonight, there are many more processes along the way that your questions would be raised. So, councillor, starting with that, are there any questions of councillor? Okay, Councillor Clark and then Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to follow up a question from one of the speakers tonight. Could council officers clarify if the sailing club will be sharing facilities with any other clubs, please?
Referring to Anthony Sevikov, thank you. Or Siobhan. Wait, hold on. Actually, sorry. Is it? I think your red light is on, but maybe it's not plugged in properly. Maybe if it's not easy to do, try it again. Otherwise, you can move to the other table if you don't mind. I think it's not working. Thank you. We'll try this one.
Through you, Mayor. The site plan proposes that the sailing club is replaced with a new building. There's no intention to significantly shrink the area, the floor plan, the floor space of that building, or in fact any other facility that's included in the site plan. We have, however, been open to the idea of smart use of facilities, of new facilities. So in the area where the Elwood Sailing Club's located, as you know, there's also an angling club and also the Scouts Baywhack facility. Some of the uses that are going on in those three facilities are common, so we've tried to keep open to the idea of potentially having common areas and common parts of the facility. So, for instance, from a feasibility perspective, from a financial perspective, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to have three double-storey buildings, each with their own lift. So there's potential to integrate that, and that's why the three buildings in the site plan are shown as connected to enable that some shared use of those three buildings. Behind the three buildings is intended to be some new storage space. We've heard from those three clubs and others that there is pressure in their facilities. There's not enough storage space, so we've created that extra space behind the building. That's also intended to be a shared space, but with allocated areas for the relevant clubs.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Clark?
Sorry, just to follow up. So if I'm the sailing club with my equipment, no one else will be able to access my storage area?
It'll be a common storage area, but it'll have it's intended to have a dedicated area for the sailing club, and likewise a dedicated area for the angling club, and a dedicated area for the BAWAC, and also a dedicated area for the lifesaving club.
But they're not... Each club could access the other club's equipment, for example?
No, the intention is
it will be separated off.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin?
I've noted that we've had a number of speakers tonight raising serious concerns and a number of emails. I'm also looking at the way the motion is written, and it talks in 3.3, and I'll ask officers to help me understand this. The site plan is intended as a high-level master plan. Can officers explain, does that mean that what we're looking at is going to be very difficult to change, or does it mean that there's going to be ample opportunity for any views if the motion as written tonight or with any amendments that we make tonight is passed? Is there still going to be ample opportunity for further changes to make, or are we locking things in before we go to consultation?
Anthony?
Through you, Mayor, what we have with the site plan, it's not a development application. It's not intended to be detailed design. It is intended to be a high-level document, a foundation, if council chooses to proceed, a foundation for design development and development applications. Each would go through their own development assessment process, including public consultation.
Thank you. Do you have another question?
I note a number of speakers and a number of other people haven't spoken, have contacted me about the location and arrangements being made for the Croquet Club. Are officers able to confirm that, A, we should be able to have a pavilion access for the Croquet Club throughout the process, including any alterations due to the Melbourne Water Channel? Will it be possible to at least consider increasing the number of courts from 2.5 courts to 3 courts? And I note there was a concern about, perhaps unsavoury behaviour from the occupants of the the occupants of the Croquet Club upsetting the residents. Perhaps can you explain to us the nature of the people who generally use that Croquet Club, and under the plan, if under the master plan the Croquet Club building is shifted to the Head Street site, will they have sole use, or will they be sharing it with, say, a PCYC disco or something like that, or is it far more likely that the Croquet Club residents, the Croquet Club members, will be the main users of that pavilion?
Anthony?
Through you, Mayor, under the amendments, under this amended site plan, the tennis club is no longer co-located with the Croquet Club. So the facility is primarily intended for croquet. However, we're open, we haven't closed our minds off to that, potentially, that facility also supporting other uses and being able to be hired out for community use. We'll need to work through, there's a lot to work through in this site plan through the detailed design stages if council elects to proceed, including the croquet facility. Now, I have forgotten the other parts of that question, sorry.
Through you, Mayor, I can help.
Yeah.
So what we've committed to is a minimum of 2.5 courts. We think we can fit that while providing a full-sized sporting field, which is currently not full-size, where the cricket and AFL is played by juniors. We have committed, though, to trying to look at accommodating 3, if we can, through this detailed design phase. In part, that'll be a little bit contingent on the Melbourne Waterworks. The Melbourne Waterworks also has some implications about the location of the building. So there will be some concerns, I think, from Melbourne Water if we locate the building on top of the drain. So hence you can see why it's been located where it is at the moment. But we are committed to working with the Croquet Club to look at what can be done in design in terms of the 3 fields and also the location of the facility. It will be a modern, fit-for-purpose facility. It will be primarily for the Croquet Club. But as with any of our facilities these days, we do try and look to make sure it's got broader utilisation and use. But again, we'll work with the club to make sure that that's complementary and satisfactory to their needs. In terms of some of the other questions we had around what we can do in the interim with Melbourne Water, it's been a key discussion point, is how we can try and ensure some continuity for the club. So there's multiple options that we're looking at. Ideally, we would be still on site, and that would be our goal. We have looked at how we could potentially do the building first and then have one of the fields retained. But there's a lot to be worked through in the early stages of discussions with Melbourne Water. We've set up a joint working group, and we'll make sure that's front and centre in those discussions around how we do try and ensure some continuity. The fallback position, if we can't do it on site, would be to do it somewhere else. We understand that has some implications. It's not ideal. So we will commit to trying to work with Melbourne Water and the club to retain on site at least some presence throughout.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Niagri?
There were a number of questions from residents and others about the traffic study and some of the other sort of traffic and parking considerations for Head Street. Just wondering if officers could just elaborate on what work has been done to this point and whether we think we're have appropriate foundation to make sure that we have an appropriate use for the street with the additional, or with the 70 car parks.
Anthony?
Through you, Mayor. In presenting to you the amended site plan, we've considered the parking implications and the traffic implications. We have undertaken, we have had an independent traffic and parking assessment undertaken. It's available on our website, and we've shared it with Bayside City Council and the Department of Transport. We have received their comments and we'll take them on board for future stages of the project if Council would like to proceed with the project. The study is indicating that undoubtedly the additional parking on Head Street will create additional traffic flow in the street, and that will no doubt have impacts for the residents of the street. I just want to acknowledge that point. That said, the independent study also indicates that the capacity of the street is clearly sufficient to accommodate that level of traffic. We additionally have undertaken a SIDRA analysis, so analysis modelling of the intersection to understand the impact on that intersection of additional traffic due to the additional parking proposed on Head Street. That's indicated that the performance of the intersection won't be unduly compromised by this additional parking.
Another question?
Yeah. So we had a couple of, I kind of just put them together. I think they're kind of interrelated. We had questions around, I guess, the adherence to best science and impact of any redevelopment of the Foreshore area on the bay, and also around, I'm assuming that there'll be work on an integrated water management plan of some sorts, sort of probably more of a detailed design stage. And there was also a question around the reallocation of contaminated soil.
So, through you, Mayor, I might be able to start on the broader works around integrated water management. Look, I think the Head Street drain duplication or expansion, it's not really a duplication, has been an important flood mitigation strategy for a long period of time. Taking on board some of the feedback, though, acknowledging that we also need to make sure that we consider the impacts on the bay more broadly. There is some joint work that's been going on with various councils in the Elster Creek area, in the catchment, and we are working jointly with Bayside, Melbourne Water and ourselves to look at an integrated approach to how we manage flows from Yallock at Woolham, the Melbourne Water duplication, as well as interventions that Council would be looking to take, including potentially taking some of the treated water subject to it being available and Bayside's agreement as stormwater harvesting. So it would be treated before and then it's used for harvesting. We'd also be looking at including some improvements to the riparian edge, and we've had a grant from the federal government with that in that regard. But we'd certainly be looking at a more holistic, integrated approach. It's front of mind, but also the flood mitigation potential of this investment is also significant and something that the council's been advocating for an extended period of time.
Thank you. Further questions? I'll take up one on the James Newbury spoke about the change rooms for the girls' football team, I believe it's the football team. Is there a timeline or an update when there might be an improvement in that?
Through you, Mayor, Council has been looking at those facilities over a number of years. It came to a council meeting last year, and we're in a process at the moment of looking at putting in some temporary facilities that would cater for the separation of the change rooms and enable better cater for women and girls and children participation and acknowledging the growth that we have there. So there is already interim plans and funding fully funded from City of Port Phillip to address that in the interim. As Anthony has highlighted and as the report highlights, we now go through a more detailed design phase. It is indicated in the site plan that we do intend to look at permanent facilities and upgrading the sporting facilities there, which would include in particular catering for female-friendly change facilities. So there is also a plan, and it is, remember, this plan has largely been funded by Council already, so you've put aside money in your 10-year plan to fund this, so it isn't unfunded, as some of the comments that were received tonight. It is funded. We are expecting that we would receive some funding from other layers of government, given the significant community benefits that are associated with it, but predominantly it's funded from the City of Port Phillip.
Thank you. Any further questions? I think all mine that I wrote down have been asked by now. All right, then I'd like to move an alt-rec, an alt motion, are we called? Motion. If you could add on the screen, I'll read the parts that are new. So adding 3.5 that acknowledges the feedback from the Bayside City Council and Head Street residents and requests officers to seek to retain current facility addressing where possible, which I'll explain in a bit. And then 3.6, his requests officers undertake further studies during the detailed design stage on the location of car parking adjacent to the soccer pitch on Head Street. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Sirikoff? Sorry, let me catch up. All right. Thank you, Councillor Sirikoff. So I'll speak to it. Thank you to the people who have showed up tonight, those online, the ones who have emailed us, sent letters. Bayside City Council, we appreciate letters from you as well. And there's been phone calls. We understand this impacts many. So it's not just the residents, there's many sports clubs that are involved in this. I think it's important to note tonight that we've had many conversations with sports clubs and only a handful tonight came because they still weren't quite sure what they're getting or maybe still have concerns. And in general, this is a high-level document about where we generally think things can go, and there'll be a lot more information coming out as we go through detailed design. So it's important that we tell the community what the intent is, the vision, but we still have a lot to work through in order to do it. It's great to have it funded, and it is an uplift on the site. I know someone brought up the restaurant, and it is great where the restaurant is, but the bike lane right behind it isn't so great. That has a lot of conflict points that doesn't make it in the ideal location. It's an opportunity for people to be able to commute through the site and connect. So there's a lot of uplift that this opportunity presents. And car parking next to the beach isn't the best way to deliver from an urban planning point of view, just pushing it back a little bit more and enhancing that foreshore at a very popular foreshore. I think that's an opportunity that not many places get to have. So getting these buildings to be up to better standard because they're aged and also forward thinking for future conditions. as well as rejigging the public realm to make it work. A master plan doesn't happen often. It's really well thought out, I think. There are issues, though, and I acknowledge that with these two items, the first one I'd like to explain more in that 3.5, is currently all the sporting clubs are addressed to Ormond Esplanade, except for the Croquet Club. And the reason I think it's important to keep this is maybe the locals might know and they'll have a preference on where to park, but it's really important when people are coming from visiting clubs that when they put that into Google Maps, it's going to take them to that Ormond Esplanade. It's just another way, car park, just to try to control where the concerns are. Naturally, because the turn isn't allowing from certain directions into Head Street, that's a natural way to just mitigate a little bit more of that traffic. But this is something I think that would help to address that. Now, emergency services, we'd have different systems for that. But for the sporting clubs, that addressing should help. The second item has been raised tonight about how that soccer pitch works and the exact distancing, etc. So it's calling it out, even though in 3.3 it's saying that detailed design will address these things again. I just wanted to really spell that one out, saying that soccer pitch and the way it sits on Head Street has possibly more opportunity to look at where those location of car parks are, whether it's turned in a little bit more or parallel. The master plan is, some would see as the best case scenario and some would see as the worst case scenario, but it at least shows you what the intent is, and I think it's a good working document that I'll be supporting tonight with the amendment. Councillor Sierikoff?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank all the residents who did turn up tonight from the City of Bayside, and also the Mayor speaking tonight, and the residents of Elwood. Their concerns about Head Street. I think it's appropriate that this amendment to look into further impacts of what the traffic might be along Head Street, and also for the soccer pitch. Soccer area. So I'm only too happy that we look into this further, and also want to support what the Mayor has just said. I won't repeat all of that because I think she outlined it very well. And I think it's but one thing I will say: this is a master plan, and nothing's in concrete. We can still look at things, maybe rejig depending on how things do fit on the plan. We're in the early stages of that master plan. So thank you for everybody turning up tonight.
Thank you. Who would like to speak to it? Councillor Nyagri?
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I've got a brief statement to read from Councillor Crawford and Councillor Baxter couldn't be here tonight, but they've sent through some remarks that I'm just going to read out quickly. So this is a statement from Councillor Crawford. When I moved to Victoria 20 years ago, I fell in love with Elwood, and a big part of that was the Foreshore and the Bay. I'm so disappointed that I cannot be there tonight for this decision on the master plan as a Canal Ward councillor. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the consultation. We appreciate the time you took to give us feedback. We learned a lot, but mostly we learned how valued the Elwood Foreshore is by our community. The decision tonight to endorse the master plan is the next step in the process to improve the facilities, access and safety, to increase the useful open space, and to make adjustments to deal with the impact of climate change, to accommodate community needs. It does not deliver everything, but it does ensure a positive foreshore for the future. Thank you to council officers involved in this process who went over and above in consulting with stakeholders. Fellow councillors, I hope you support the master plan, and as a ward councillor, I would ask you vote it up because it is a vision for a positive, practical, deliverable foreshore. Councillor Baxter was a bit more brief. He concurred with the statement that Councillor Crawford had sent through, and said he just wanted to thank everyone for participating tonight and for their contributions throughout the consultation phase. And he also wanted to acknowledge that although the master plan isn't perfect, it is the best space to work off, and he hopes that we can be nimble enough to make sure that sensible changes can be made in the future if needed. In regards to my own comments on this, I'm also supportive of approving this master plan tonight. These things are difficult. It's always frustrating when you start. When you first start, you think, okay, we can make it all work and everyone will be happy and we'll make a whole bunch of new space. But you quickly learn that there are like a lot of users, a lot of groups who've been using the site for a long time, that they have a great deal of investment in the space that they've been given, and that if you start to move the blocks around, you need to make sure that at the end of that process that everybody's left somewhat better off. I think the core objective of this plan, which is what really attracts me to it, is that it moves the parking away from the very front of the site on the foreshore, and it moves it back toward Ormond Road, and obviously a little bit toward Head Street. I think that ultimately delivers a core portion of the site which can be used better by the community. As someone who's been cycling through there and swimming and doing a lot of different things, I've done a number of triathlons in Elwood over the years, the current placement of the car park, the current placement of the Bay Trail, which I think has moved 2 or 3 times over my life, but is still going through a number of conflict zones as it moves through the site, just isn't really workable. And I think this proposal provides a better vision that I think ultimately will enable us to have a really vibrant and exciting site along the front and toward the beach. It retains the heritage buildings, it has a much safer bay trail, and then on the sort of sporting oval car park side, it provides a much more manageable configuration. There's definitely feedback we've heard from some of the groups around clubhouses. I can assure you we want to make sure that that you end up with something that is better than what you had before. That is the whole intention of this process. And if we can make additional changes in the future to ensure that we, for example, have 3 croquet clubs rather than 3 croquet courts rather than 2 and a half, I think that would be a fantastic outcome. There's a lot of moving blocks to be made though still, so we don't want to ultimately have any other negative impacts on other residents. So there's a lot of work to go through going forward, but I think we're in a pretty good place at the moment, and we're going to keep working with the community as we roll out the different sections over the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Well, thank you to everyone who's been involved in providing feedback on the initial iteration of the plan when it first came out, and I note that people from Tennis Club, Croquet Club, various other organisations have already had a significant impact on the design, but as the question I asked at the start of this debate, we know this is not the final iteration, and that there's the opportunity to make further changes, particularly with some of the notations or some of the additions that the Mayor has made in her recommendation. Something that's particularly concerned me listening to some of the comments tonight, and I'm the Child Safety Officer of a rather large football club in this municipality, is the concern of children on Head Street, and that hasn't been brought to my attention before, but I hope that in the consultation process, our officers will be able to look at that and the local sporting clubs will get back to us. I note that when we had similar concerns with Watty Watson, councillors erected a net at Watty Watson so that footballs can't go out onto the street and we don't have children running out chasing balls. If there are already issues with children chasing balls onto Head Street as it already exists, there may well be a strong argument that at some stage we may need to look at some sort of 4 or 5 metre high, very, very, very transparent netting that keep people away. And if there's any change in the layout of the sporting ovals that under this plan, again, we'd probably need to look at that because, as somebody said, it would be awful if a child was injured by a football or a soccer ball and we were aware that there was a danger there and we hadn't done anything about it. So, yes, I'm sure there are lots of alterations we can make to this, what I think is quite an excellent starting point, but I'm sure that what comes out in the end will be bigger and better. But my particular concerns are we need to make sure that our children who are using the park there are very, very safe, and let's hope that during this process we can make sure that that happens. But yeah, I'll be supporting it, and I look forward to an informative consultation process and an even better document arriving at the end of that process.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This plan is, as it says, a master plan. It's gone through a number of versions to reach this stage. And I do want to stress, as others have said, it's a high-level plan, and there's no suggestion that the detail has been prepared and that it doesn't require further detail, and it may even require tweaking as we go through it. It has a project timeline of 10 years or more. So if this is a legacy project, as one of the speakers suggested tonight, I'm not sure whose legacy it will be, because it'll be multiple councils that will deliver this over such a long period of time. And given the scale of the project, it's appropriate that it takes a long period of time. And that also goes to the financial responsibility and governance that we've placed over this project, acknowledging that it can't be delivered quickly, and that's why we will take some period of time to do it. So there is funding allocated to it, but we're not suggesting a project of this scale does need state government support, and that is normal and a normal part of the process as we move forward with this and move into the detail and the development. Much consultation has taken place. and the sporting clubs have had their input. The community had a very big engagement and opportunity to say, and some of that feedback was definitely taken into account. Not everyone got what they wanted, which is disappointing, but there is more demand on this reserve than there is space, and we've done our best to increase the facilities where we can and where we can see it's needed. But we recognise that everyone would like more, and we'd like to give more. We have heard that some facilities do need to be upgraded, such as female change rooms, the Pavilion, and we've got interim steps in place to deliver that. The Croquet Club has been heard. I know they don't feel like that, and we will definitely attempt to accommodate 3 courts. We just need more detail, more planning, I guess, to work through that. I do agree with one of the speakers tonight that moving the current restaurant back from the water is disappointing and is a concern to me. As an Elwood resident, I know firsthand how well utilised that restaurant is, and one of the main reasons it's successful is because of its connection to the water. So any movement of that needs to retain clear views of the water and provide the ongoing enjoyment, which is why people utilise that restaurant. So, as I said, it's the residents of Elwood and the City of Port Phillip should welcome an investment of this scale and upgrading of the facilities. It doesn't take too much to see that many of the sporting clubs, particularly the Lifesaving Club and others, the facilities are tired. They're at full capacity. They can't even store their equipment that they need to run a Lifesaving Club. So, we have an obligation to renew and upgrade as we go. So this will enable us to accommodate change in demographics, upgrading facilities, and do some new things such as a half basketball court, which reflects the growing popularity of that sport. And no plan can deliver for everyone, we do know that, but we've achieved a balance and there'll be a lot more conversations going forward. I note Bayside's concerns with Head Street, and the Mayor has covered that off, and the amendments show that we are concerned and we do want to engage more fully around that or further. So yes, I'll be supporting this motion, and thank you to the officers. It's been a huge process to get to this point.
Thank you. Any further councillors speaking to it? Councillor Bond?
Yes, just briefly. I fully support the movement of the car park away from where it's currently located. One of the reasons we're doing this is because at this point in time we've probably got the most attractive and valuable from a usage point of view parcel of land down there at the Elwood Foreshore, and we're currently using it as a car park, which is just a if you want to harp on that previous item about another car park that we currently could find a better use for, it's exactly what we're doing here. There's better ways to use some of these car parks than how we currently use them, and what we're doing with this master plan is trying to do that and create some actual space for people to use that area adjacent to the beach, open up the foreshore, have better links through there, untangle all the cycling and pedestrian conflict that goes through there, create spaces where probably an equivalent of South Beach somewhere down there where people can go to the beach, sit on the grass, look at the water, have a dip every now and again, come back out, sunbake. At the moment that space is being used by car parks. There's a much better way we can do that, and unfortunately that involves us relocating car parks to other areas, and that is going to have an impact on some of the residents of Head Street, because we are going to use that space on the periphery of the site for additional car parking as it's proposed now. In terms of consultation, I know I've been down there, it's not even my ward, but I've been down there to meet the cricket clubs, footy clubs, tennis clubs, croquet, Lifesaving Club, had their conversations, taken on board their feedback and inputted that into this process. And hopefully, a lot of that will come through over the next year or so as we go down to, we'll start to look at detailed design and how we deliver each of the little segments within here. As has been stated, this is just a very high level plan for us to say, yep, everything fits. And then once we're sure everything fits and we approve that particular high-level element, we then go down into each section. So, right, how do we get the croquet club to work? How do we get the tennis club to work? How do we get the angling club to work? That sort of thing. And we get very detailed. Where are we going to put the restaurants? That sort of thing. So this is a very high-level plan that will change over the years. There will be lots of alterations and iterations and movements of certain things within the master plan that we approve here tonight. So I will fully support this tonight and urge my fellow councillors to do the same thing.
Thank you. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to it? No. All right. I think everyone's said a lot and I don't need to close on it, so we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. All right. Thank you very much for coming tonight and for everything you've submitted to date. We will move on to 10.3, but we'll wait for the gallery to clear. All right, next item is 10.3, Elder Smith Netball Courts and Pavilion Update. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers in relation to this item? Councillor Martin?
I see that as well as approving the original project, the motion that we're going to be debating tonight includes a couple of additional items as additional expenditure. Can officers let me know? I see there's a scoreboard there. There are 4 netball courts. Is that scoreboard going to service one court or will it be able to service all 4 courts at the same time?
Dana, are you online? Dana, are you there? No, somebody else can refer to.
Through you, Mayor. The scoreboards are intended to service all 4 courts, not just one court.
Councillor Martin, question?
Second question, there's a recommendation there about solar panels, but we don't have, as councillors, yet details about that. Are officers able to provide additional information to councillors in the coming weeks? And if we didn't make a decision about solar panels tonight, when would council be in possession of the information so it could make a decision about whether or not it would include solar panels on the roof?
Through you, Mayor, we will do some investigation over the next 2 weeks and bring that back to councillors to make a decision on.
Through you, Mayor, my suggestion is that that officers as an option look at the solar panels and come back with more information, maybe not in the next few weeks. We can give you an update in a briefing, but when we have some more solid information on the costs and the benefits, and we can bring it back to council for a decision so we could work it up as an option alongside the current project.
Thank you. I'll just ask a question if you're done, Councillor Martin. I do see in the report the idea of a green roof and what's it called? An upgrade or increase to the finishes. Can we have understanding when that has been requested, or has it been requested, or has it been recommended or suggested?
Through you, Mayor, the green roof would be in line with sustainable practices. It hasn't been requested previously, which is why it was added as an option. Through the design process for the building, the designers suggested some upgraded finishes, which we've added as options for councillors to consider.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Nyagui?
Yeah, I was just kind of trying to get a sense of, well, obviously there's a lot of sort of standard stuff we do in terms of our buildings now around sustainability and, climate change adaptation. Things like the green roof and solar panels, do we have a standardised approach across, I guess, our council buildings around how we approach this? And is that something that we're maybe considering through the climate? I don't recall seeing anything as part of the climate plan, but...
Through you, Mayor, I would need to take that on notice.
CEO?
Through you, Mayor, we are looking through the Act and Adapt and the Climate Emergency Action Plan work. There is an item in there, I believe, around looking at guidelines around buildings into the future. I don't think we have a standard around green roofs, but it's something that we consider in terms of environmental sustainable design. And also in terms of solar panels, I think, again, we're looking at, where possible, putting in those measures. But I think in this particular case, we need to make sure it offers good value for money as well. So there's some further work to be done on that option, I think.
I'll ask one more. Sorry. You go ahead. Okay, I'll go. With the existing netball club facility at RF Julia Reserve, there's a little pavilion there, and I know that those will stay multi-line courts as overflow, for example, for a local tournament or something. The budget, it looks like it's increased, but is there any budget available or forward planning for that pavilion to have an upgrade?
Through you, Mayor, there's no funding through this project for any upgrades at RF Julia. It can be considered in future budget cycles if required.
Thank you. Councillor Nyangri?
There's two other questions I assume they'll probably need to be on notice. First one was, I guess, just around the interplay between having a green roof and a solar panels. I kind of assume one kind of counters the other, but yeah, whether that sort of like reduces the available space for green roofs. The other question was just whether this facility was going to be connected to gas, or whether it would be entirely like electric powered.
Through you, Mayor, I'd need to take the gas question on notice. With regards to solar panels and green roofs, they can coexist on the same roof. That just needs to be designed appropriately.
Through you, Mayor, we generally try not to have new buildings connected to gas unless it's got a good reason, like because it's a restaurant. In this particular case, I don't think it would need gas for heating or cooling, cooking, etc. So I would infer that it's not, but we'll come back to you to clarify that.
All right. Another question?
Sorry, I just remembered one that was actually probably more a question that Councillor Martin was asking earlier than day, but it's probably worth asking. If we do a green roof in this context, is that like, are there examples of that for other sporting pavilions? Given obviously there's like balls around and things, and you often have to go onto the roof of a pavilion in the sporting precinct to collect things like balls. Are there examples of that with green roofs, and is that potentially a hazard or an issue in terms of collecting things and the like?
Through you, Mayor, we don't have any other green roofs on our sporting pavilions within this municipality. With netball, it's less likely that balls will end up on roofs, but we can look into whether or not that's a concern if a green roof was a consideration at this site.
Thank you. All right. Any further questions? If not, I'm looking for a councillor to move the officer's recommendation or something else. Councillor Martin?
I've got an alternative recommendation which I hope is about to appear on the screen.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, do you have, well, we might just wait. Actually, it's easier to check it. But if you have your version, maybe you can...
Okay, so what I have sitting in front of me is under 3.3.1, add the sentence, to be considered further subject to costings and available budget, with a final report to be presented to Council. And then we would delete 3.3.2, which is green roof including drainage system cost $260,000, and delete 3.3.5, higher quality finishes, fixtures and fittings cost $400,000.
Thank you. Does that look correct to you?
Yep.
Great. Someone to second that? I'm happy to second it. Go ahead, Councillor Martin, speak to it. I don't think you're on. Thank you.
Sorry. I've been involved in the journey with the Port Melbourne Netball Club since it was started over 20 years ago. Started out with about 30 children, mainly girls, at RF Julia. Has long since outgrown the current venue that it's got. And we now have hundreds of children, girls and boys, playing netball. We also have adults playing netball as well. The Port Colts senior netball team lost their grand final 2 weeks ago. So it's becoming a very large and popular sport. And even with RF Julia and even with these 4 additional courts, there'll still be pressure on courts availability in the city of Port Phillip. So it's a wonderful opportunity for the young people, and I mean probably anyone under about 60 who's playing netball in the Port Melbourne, South Melbourne area to be able to access these new courts. I'm pleased that, as well as the original document that we looked at as councillors some months ago, I'm pleased that we now have a scoreboard added in. I think it's going to make it far more exciting for all the users to have the scoreboard in use. I'm pleased that we've got additional outdoor seating. I think that's going to be fantastic. I'd love to see solar panels on the roof. We haven't, as councillors, yet seen the full details of how that would work and a cost-benefit analysis, but I'm hoping that the officers will come back with a recommendation which we'll be able to pass as a council at a further date. So if this motion is successful, I'm hoping in a couple of meetings' time we can add in the solar panels further down the track. If I was going to be spending trying to do my sums here, the additional $660,000 for the fittings and the green roof, I believe that there's an urgent need amongst a number of other sporting pavilions in the city of Port Phillip to have money spent on them. And we've just talked about one, the need to upgrade the female sporting facilities at the Waddy Watson Oval. I'd also love to see our planning scheme altered further down the track so that there were very strong incentives for not just council but other people to do put green roofs on buildings. And I'm hoping that through the Climate Emergency Action Plan consultation process, there'll be recommendations coming back to council about that. But at this point in time, given the complexities of a sporting pavilion, the fact that I'm hoping there'll be solar panels on the roof, there will be balls going on the roof. If we are going to start putting in green roofs, this is probably not the best place to start, although hopefully in 2 or 3 years' time, with the will of the council, we may well be looking at putting green roofs in a variety of new buildings around here. But currently, I believe the motion as it now stands best suits the needs of our netballers in the city of Port Phillip, and by leaving out 2 of the clauses, leaves additional money to be available to support some of the other sporting facilities, e.g. the urgent need to upgrade the pavilions at Waddy Watson. So I hope, councillors, you'll support this, and I hope I'll be able to have an argument for you in a month's time to formally include the solar panels as well.
Thank you. The Port Melbourne Netball Club has been waiting a very long time for this before and after the announcement, so it's really exciting that it's gotten to this level. The addition of the club room, more flexible space in the middle, is a good addition. I showed a few people on the weekend the plans. They hadn't seen it yet that are part of the club and really like the way it looks and are excited about it. So although a green roof is listed here, and I do love green roofs, it probably just isn't the right place to spend this money, and I would prefer it to be actually spent on the existing pavilion at RF Julia to enhance that one. And I think we could hopefully stretch a little bit of the existing budget and be a bit creative in the wall finishes, etc., to not need the additional $400,000, but still make this look a pretty good building. Thank you to the council officers on this one. It's really good to see it progressing. Who would like to speak to it next? Councillor Sirikoff?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the modifications to this motion, the alt-rec, as to 3.3.1, the $180,000 for solar panels and a battery. Given that it's a single-storey building, the cost of installing solar panels, which many people have done, is way less than $180,000, even with a battery. So I think we can get better, hopefully through our officers' further research, we can get a better outcome for this money. And so I'm supportive of further investigations. As for the green roof, I'm concerned about the ongoing costs of maintenance of a roof, of having those type of plants that are suitable for roofs, but the ongoing costs of maintaining that space when we could be spending $260,000, say, on planting of further trees across the whole municipality and not in just one small space, $260,000. And I'm also in agreement with 3.3.5, spending $400,000 on making a building a little bit more tough or more purpose-built, I guess, in a way. I think it would have to be purpose-built in the first place. And there's going to be wear and tear, and probably after 10 years, no matter what finishes we have, we would have to upgrade or replace the fittings anyway. So I think the money could be better spent at other sporting venues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors speaking to the item? Councillor Nowgri.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be voting against this. I think kind of the amusing byproduct of this is watching us sort of shred these proposals and cut out nice things. I think we can have nice things. I mean, we obviously chose to cut $11.5 or so million from memory from the 10-year forward budget a couple of months ago, and then that leads to us to making these kind of decisions where we decide we don't want solar panels and we don't want a green roof, we don't want high quality finishes. Kind of depresses me a bit. I will foreshadow that if this fails, I will move the original officer's recommendation. I think we hear time and time again from clubs that they have concern that we build these facilities, we cut costs during construction, and then some of the fittings, the fixtures, etc., don't last the test of time. So when I hear that officers are suggesting we spend a bit more money to try to get it to a standard where we think we can have it be high quality in the medium term, I think that's something we should jump at. And similarly, this council, last time I recalled, had a climate emergency declaration. We are working on ways to address it. Both of these proposals around solar panels and a green roof seem like sensible ones to me. Maybe one or the other, but at this stage they're sort of squibbling at both and sort of saying, well, let's do something else. But if not this, then what exactly? I'd certainly be keen for us to have a consistent approach across our buildings, but again, in the interim, I would rather us lean into doing more rather than doing less. And so I will be voting against this.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking to it? Otherwise, sorry, Councillor Pearl.
That's fine. We're not cutting. These are discretionary items, so let's be very, very clear on that. We're not cutting anything from this project. These are additional items to be considered. They're discretionary in nature. And $260,000 for a green roof is ridiculous. Probably $260,000 will buy you four, maybe 5 trees on the Shrine of the Sea project. So maybe there's better value over there than this one. But in terms of a green roof on this is ludicrous, to be frank. In terms of the you calling point of order on me? Error in fact.
Stick to the item.
In terms of the solar panels and batteries, we already buy renewable energy at a vastly cheaper price. I don't have the megawatt conversion on that one, but I'm pretty confident it would be probably 1/10 the price, I'd be guessing, in terms of what would actually be brought out of that if the useful life of those panels and that battery is something like 15 years. So we're here to make good decisions for the many. We don't go cheap on our projects, and the high quality finishes with this project at $400,000 is a significant investment. It's perhaps something in parts we can come back and look at. We have had some issues with some of our sporting facilities in the past. That isn't because we've cut through construction processes. In fact, I think the one I'm talking about, we increased it by 450% during the construction process. We live in an area that has some engineering difficulties. We don't have hills and mountains, etc., but we do have a foreshore, boundless amounts of toxic soil and other complicating factors that means there's practical engineering issues that we have to take into consideration when we're doing these things. So costs occasionally do blow out, but I can assure everybody we do not go cheap on sporting facilities. I remember, as Councillor Martin probably does, when this club was getting changed in a tin shed off to the side of the court that was pretty average. We upgraded the courts where they previously were, and that was a huge success, and the club's gone from strength to strength to there. This is a project, councillors, we can be proud of. We're not going cheap. We're investing in the future, and our future children and grandchildren will enjoy these facilities for many, many years to come. So be proud of the investment you're making here this evening. Happy to support it.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking to the item? If not, Councillor Martin to close.
It's not often that I have to rebut people speaking for and against a motion at the same time, but I'd like to take issue with both Councillor Nyagi and with Councillor Pearl. I'm hoping that if this motion does get up, I'm hoping that Councillor Nyagi will be supporting my motion to install solar panels as long as the numbers check out, and I'm sure they will. And I'd like to take issue with Councillor Pearl's comments about green roofs, and I'm not sure the term ridiculous is whatever. Can you remind the exact? I want to get the word right, but the adjective that you used I didn't feel was
Happy
appropriate.
to withdraw.
Okay. got me out of. Yeah, but very briefly, as I foreshadow, I would love to see recommendations about green roofs on appropriate facilities included in our planning scheme. I'm just not sure that a sporting club roof is the right place to be starting the initiation of a green roof project, but I will be hoping that the Climate Emergency Action Plan consultation process does encourage us to go down that route on facilities where it's appropriate. So, Councillor Nyagi, looking forward to your support when we try and put the solar panels on in a meeting or two's time.
Thank you. Let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry to announce we have 8 more items plus confidential. So, with that in mind, can we please try to keep our debates concise? Thank you. Let's move on to 10.4, Heritage Overlay, other known as HO8, Precinct Review. Are there any questions of the officers in relation to this item? No. Who would like to move this or something else? Councillor Bond, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Nyagi? Thank you. Councillor Bond, would you like to speak to it? Oh, you've heeded my warning. Okay, Councillor Nyagi? No. Anybody else want to speak to it? Okay, real quick. I know that there's some passionate ward councillors who aren't here tonight, but this is just going out to community consultation, and it's not a statutory requirement to do this, but it feels like the right thing to consult with the owners and stakeholders at this mid-stage. There's also later consultation as well. So I will be supporting this, and let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. On to, pardon? Oh, sorry. We are going to swap governance just to upskill as well. Hi, Katrina. All right, we're on to 11.1, which is the public toilet plan. Sorry. Funny. Comedians here. Okay, 11.1, Public Toilet Plan 2023 to 2033, Consultation Findings and Final Plan Endorsement. Any questions of the officers in relation to this report? I have one. Is there any chance that something like the Port Melbourne Lifesaving Club public toilet block, the one next to the Lifesaving Club, could be moved up even further? CEO?
Through you, Mayor, I think it's scheduled for design in 24-25. Is that right? Yeah. We can look at priorities across the program as we move into the next stage. We with the Fitzroy Street public toilet not going ahead has created some capacity. But I can't make any firm commitments on that yet. But we can have a look at it, and in particular, also if we do get ahead of the design, we can look at implementation, bringing forward as well. I mean, what we've got here is a commitment in the plan. It has been brought forward already based on what we originally were suggesting, and happy to look at it again further without making a commitment to changing it yet.
Great, thank you very much. All right, any further questions on this item? Sorry, Councillor Martin.
Mayor, yesterday a number of us went on a walk along Clarendon Street and looked at things that maybe the council could look at improving. A number of people commented on the difficulty of finding a public toilet in Clarendon Street, because there aren't any. There are nearby public toilets, but there's no signage. If we adopt this plan, does this preclude us doing things further down the track, like adding additional signage or maybe even considering a new public toilet in the vicinity of Clarendon Street? So, in other words, is this document going to be a living document that can be amended as appropriate?
Through you, Mayor, of course, each budget cycle we review the plan ahead. This is gives us a fairly good idea and make sure that we've got adequate funding put aside. But we can review emerging projects. It certainly doesn't stop us from putting in signage if that's an issue. And those audits that we're doing are actually really designed to try and collect that kind of information. And we will update. And if it is something that we think needs to be addressed, we will address it. New toilets on main streets. I've had a bit of recent experience on that one. We can certainly have a look at it, but it's proved very challenging, as you'd know.
Like a toilet that should not be named or something. All right. Any further questions? All right. If not, does Councillor want to move the officer's recommendation or something else? Councillor Niagri, I'll give it to you tonight, and Councillor Martin second. Councillor Niagri, would you like to speak to it? Sorry, I'm not in the microphone.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought I should take the opportunity to support some other toilets, given my recent voting record. Despite some public commentary, I do support public toilets, and I think they're a really important part of our city. I think the thing that I often hear from people is that they're the ones we've got are not very good, but I think the thing that heartens me at this plan is that we are continuing as a council to try to make them better and make them more available to people. They're one of the most difficult, I'd say probably the most difficult asset for a council to manage. It's one of the most intimate spaces a person can be in, but they also obviously can get pretty unpleasant at times, and so trying to make sure that we maintain them to a good standard, that we have them in the right places, and that we deal with any unintended consequences is always a challenge. I think this plan does just that.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Oh, sorry, is that a question? Because otherwise Councillor Martin will speak next. So, Councillor Martin?
The members of the Older Persons Advisory Committee will be delighted if councillors support this, because the use of public toilets is something that's very dear to their hearts and other parts of their anatomy.
Councillor Bond, would you like to follow that up?
I was going to say, as a non-Fairweather supporter of public toilets in this city, I thoroughly commend this report. This is our core business. As I've said on many occasions, this is why we exist, is to provide some very, very basic services to our city. Things like rubbish collection, cleaning and public toilets is why we exist. So thoroughly endorse this, and hopefully we can get on and build a few more before this term is up.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking to the item? I will. I think this has been good to hear from our community, and there's been suggestions of other places that we will be looking at in the future. Feasibility investigations down the line, especially around that Fisherman's Bend area as it comes more online. I'm really passionate about the Port Melbourne Lifesaving Club being moved up as soon as possible. Glad it's already been moved up slightly because it is highly utilised by all the bay swimmers and the public in general in that area. There's a lot of older buildings that aren't up to the new standards of accessibility and standards in general of cleaning them. So there's a good uplift across the municipality. So, all right, let's go ahead and go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to 12.1, Artist Engagement Services Contract. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the item? No? All right, so sorry, my computer's playing up. All right, is there a councillor that would like to move this or something else? No one? All right, I'll move it. Who would like to second it? Councillor Sirikoff? Okay. I'll reserve. Councillor Sirikoff, would you like to speak to it? Anybody else speaking to it? All right. I don't have anything to add. I think this is good, so happy to take it to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. I need water. Okay. Oh, there's so many takers. Thank you. Okay, we're on to 13.1, procurement of security services contract. Are there any questions of the officers in relation to the report? No. Is there a mover of this item? Councillor Bond, who would like to second it? Councillor Martin, thank you. Councillor Bond to speak to it? Councillor Martin? No. Anybody else speaking to the item? All right, I know it's getting late. We do care, and it's important items. We'll go ahead and take that to the vote, though. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. And thank you for the water. On to 13.2. This is the risk management policy and framework. Any questions of the officers in relation to this report? No. Who would like to move this one? Councillor Martin. Councillor Bond a second. Sorry, we're going quickly. It's a good thing. Sorry, I got that backwards. Did Bond move it? Martin moved it. Sorry, I read it right. Okay, Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
Just this is one of the most important things that we do as a council, and I thank members like Councillor Sirikoff and our other reps on audit and risk and the other people who are involved in making sure that we minimise our risks within the City of Port Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. No, anybody else speaking to the item? Councillor Sirikoff?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, being on the audit and risk, I see what's happening every quarter and all the important issues that are brought to it. So having a framework of risk management is very important. What I found reading this report, the most important phrase in this report is under paragraph 4.2, the updated framework provides greater clarity on the roles of leaders and the Audit and Risk Committee when it comes to risk management and responsibility. And it now, apart from all the stuff it's usually included, such as emergency management and health and safety, fraud and corruption legislation, legislative regulatory compliance, it now also includes references to child safety, incidences, issues, breaches and claims, control effectiveness testing and insurance as a risk tool. So I think this is a very important document that we should all be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking to the item? If not, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. On to 13.3, Councillor Expenses Monthly Reporting for July 2023. Any questions of the officers in relation to the report? If not, would someone like to move this? Councillor Martin, thank you. Councillor Bond, you guys are great. Thank you. Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it? Councillor Bond to speak to it? Anybody else speaking to the item? No, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Whizzing through. On to 13.4, which is the last of the reports. This is the in-principle approval of the annual financial statements 2022 to 23 and performance statements 2022 to 2023. Any questions of the officers in relation to the report? No. Who would like to move this item? Okay. Woo. There you go. Councillor Pearl will give you one. And to second it will be Councillor Bond. Thank you. Councillor Pearl, are you speaking to it?
It's a beautiful set of numbers and it's beautifully presented. I'd much prefer if we present our budgets the way that these financial statements are presented. They're nice and simple. The first 3 pages, it gives you a very clear overview and a simple format of how much money we brought in, which was an enormous amount of money, and how much money went out the door. And what the difference was. It's fairly straightforward, but it is a beautiful set of numbers in terms of the current financial position of the council, and something councillors should be very proud of. But there's also a big responsibility in terms of the custodian and stewardship of the results contained within these reports, and also the reserves that sit within it. And that's something we should turn our attentions to shortly.
Thank you. Councillor Bond. Anybody else speaking to the item? I will. I think that's a really good sentiment that the numbers are really healthy and great, but there's a lot of responsibility in the role that we have. It says that I have to sign this along with the Deputy Mayor signing this, so A lot of responsibility in our roles with a big organisation. Anybody else speaking to it? Let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, now that is the end of the presentation reports, but we do have a notice of motion tonight. That's item 14.1, motion raised by Councillor Bond in relation to Fitzroy Street outdoor speakers. Councillor Bond, I see that you'll be moving this. Do I have a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Martin. And now that it's been seconded, I'll give the opportunity if anyone wants to ask a question real quick. No questions? All right, Councillor Bond, would you like to speak to it?
Do I need to read it out, or we're all good with that? No. On the agenda, all good. No, I won't speak to it. I think you heard tonight David Blakely from the Fitzroy Street Business Association came along and spoke to it. I think there was one complaint, and we've lost 4 venues, have lost the ability to have some outdoor music. The music adds life to Fitzroy Street, much needed life. It says that this shop is open. It says that our street is alive. I don't think there's ever been any issues with excessive noise down there, and if there is, we do have measures in place to deal with them. I think the blunt instrument of you just can't have them is probably not a good outcome and probably counterproductive to what it is we're trying to achieve for our streets down there. So I won't keep you all here much longer. Just urge you all, if you could see fit to support this and we get some life back onto Fitzroy Street.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Just let's hope our officers can come up with something that's going to help us. So thank you, Councillor Bond, for raising this.
Anybody else speaking to the item? Councillor Nyagui?
Just to fully support this motion being put forward and thank Councillor Bond and others for picking it up and for being prompt in getting it to us. I think we can only be doing more at Fitzroy Street. Doing less seems to me to be a silly answer. So I think this is a good little solution.
Great. Anybody else speaking to the item? Otherwise, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, on to reports by councillor delegates. Councillors, do you have any reports for us tonight? No. Moving on. Items of urgent business. Councillors, do we have any items of urgent business? No. Moving on to confidential matters. Councillors, we have 2 confidential matters reports that are listed on the agenda, being 17.1, procurement of waste compactors for internal waste collection services, and 17.2, which is portfolio contingency management. We're now going to close them. I'll now call upon a councillor to move that the meeting be closed to members of the public to consider the confidential items. Thank you, Councillor Bond, and seconded Councillor Sirikoff. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Teresa. You sat on the other side of the room tonight. I was like, she's not there.